Amid drifting clouds over the eastern continent, a land quietly glowed golden as if awakening from a thousand-year slumber. It was where every legend began and where the storm that would reshape the world was born, near the land of Gansu in the northwest of the Central Plains. This region was rich in minerals and held a vital position along the Silk Road. To seize this land, the Iron Flag Alliance and the Nine Wheels cult had fought countless fierce battles. Day after day in the vast Marshall Hall Square, hundreds of disciples punched in unison, their battle cries booming like thunder. Zhangdu, the fifth incense leader of the Black Flag Hall, shouted, "No matter what weapon you wield, unarmed combat is the foundation of battle. Weapons are only tools, your body is what uses them, and if you don't want to die, train it with everything you've got." "All right, dismissed." As soon as he finished, the disciples collapsed to the ground, gasping in relief. Suddenly, a sturdy arm shot into the air. In a steady voice, Banhyo called, "Incense leader." He asked, "No matter how hard we train, isn't it pointless against martial masters who can form sword energy or unleash palm strikes?" Zhangdu nodded. "That's right, you're mere foot soldiers, and facing such masters means near certain death, but they have one weakness you don't." Those words stunned Banhyo, and he hesitated before asking, "What is it?" Zhangdu smiled proudly, "Their reputation." Banhyo widened his eyes and frowned. "How can reputation be a weakness?" Zhangdu calmly explained, "Because they're famous, everyone knows what martial arts and weapons they use. You know their techniques, but they know nothing about yours. If you want to survive against masters, use that advantage. That's your only chance." For a brief moment, a crimson killing intent flashed in Zhangdu's eyes. Then he looked straight at the disciples and declared, "After lunch, I'll teach you about the masters of the Nine Wheels cult." Banhyo was so shocked his eyes and mouth hung wide open. Banhyo let out a long sigh. "I'm already grown up and I still have to study." As soon as he spoke, he noticed someone chuckling behind him. It was Bongok. Veins bulged on his forehead as he shouted, "Hey, brat, shut up." A few hours later, outside on the bustling streets, warm sunlight bathed the lively marketplace in a cheerful glow. At a weapon stall, someone exclaimed, "What an incredible sword." The stall owner seized the chance to boast, "This is the legendary sword from the West. It was embedded in a stone for 1,000 years, and whoever pulled it out became the greatest king in the world. That's why countless mighty warriors fought desperately to obtain it." But to everyone's surprise, a mere boy drew it out, then united the world and became king. Hearing the tale, Bongok's eyes lit up. "Really?" The stall owner grinned and spread his arms. "Absolutely. If you own this sword, you'll become king too." But Bongok hesitated and stiffly asked, "How much is it?" Before the owner could answer, a stern voice cut in, "Take that decoration onto a battlefield. King, it'll only make you a corpse." Standing before them was Duo, firm and unreadable. The stall owner, fearing for his livelihood, snapped, "A guy carrying a butcher's cleaver dares to lecture me." Duo tilted his head slightly and coldly replied, "Pig or man, once you're chopped into pieces, you die all the same." That was the final straw. The owner grabbed the sword and charged while yelling, "Business is already terrible, and now this brat comes to cause trouble." Duo showed no fear, only mockery. "You think that decoration can cut anything? What if you chip the blade?" The moment he finished, the stall owner rushed forward shouting, "Decoration, my foot." A sharp metallic clang rang through the air as a blinding flash burst forth. In that instant, Duo stood with his blade raised in one hand while the stall owner knelt behind him. The next moment, the man's sword snapped in half, and its precious ruby fell to the ground. Duo calmly sheathed his blade across his back. Then he rushed to Bongok and sternly asked, ignoring the stall owner shouting behind him, "Do you know where the Iron Flag Alliance is?" Sweating nervously, he stammered and pointed ahead. "Go straight down this road and you'll see the main gate." "But why are you going to the Iron Flag Alliance?" Bongok watched him walk away steadily and asked, but Duo simply replied, "I have something to do." Seeing how cool he looked, Bongok's eyes lit up as he exclaimed, "He's so impressive." A while later, at the Iron Flag Alliance Black Flag Division Joker Squad Barracks, Banhyo clasped his hands behind his back, slowly entered the house and asked, "What are you reading?" The old man calmly turned each page and replied, "The Art of War." Banhyo slowly sat down and asked, "Was that man a master?" The old man gently explained, "The art of war isn't just about warfare, it also teaches how to deal with people." He slapped one hand on the table and said sharply, "Who cares about that? Just give me a really sharp sword." The old man looked Banhyo in the eyes and asked, "There are swords that kill and swords that save. Which one do you want?" Banhyo flared up, gritted his teeth, and snapped, "I don't care as long as it's sharp." The next morning, at the Iron Flag Alliance in the capital, Duo stood firmly in the room and answered, "I don't know." 3rd Cavalry Monk Po Weryong looked up in shock and said, I'm asking about your background. Duo admitted honestly, I'm a bastard, leaving him frozen. But Woryong quickly regained his composure, stroked his beard, and asked, then which sect do you belong to? Duo stood upright with a lonely air and answered, I have no master. Po Woryong could hardly believe it. You have neither parents nor a master, Duo answered only with silence. Woryong sighed helplessly, leaned on his hand, and muttered, what am I supposed to do? Just when he was at a loss, two figures appeared before him right on time. Division leader, and didn't you say the Black Flag Division needed more men? The Black Flag Division leader, and so, stood stunned. Woryong quickly introduced him. He was recommended by the chief guardian. Jongdu carefully examined him and asked in a deep voice, what's your name? He answered expressionlessly, Duo. He then asked, what is your specialty? Duo replied briefly, blade techniques, and Inso's eyes fell on the blade strapped across his back. Inso's face immediately turned serious as he examined him. After thinking for a moment, Inso asked, are you left-handed? Duo said nothing and simply drew the blade with his left hand, which was his answer. Inso frowned and asked, why do you carry your blade like that? Is there a reason? Duo sheathed it and answered, it's more convenient. He said nothing more and silently watched the two men before him. And so fell into thought and didn't know what to say. A while later, in another building, voices echoed, the ghost unit leader made us train this early, so we're probably fighting the 9 Dragons cult soon. Will our Joker squad be going too? The old man slowly arranged the equipment and confidently replied, of course. Across from him, Ban Hyo kept shaving his head and complained, our squad doesn't even have a squad leader yet. Just then, Jongdu and Inso arrived with Duo, and he announced, let me introduce the new leader of Joker Squad. Ban Hyo immediately stopped trimming. The old man also looked up seriously to see who it was. Time itself seemed to freeze for a moment. Suddenly, Bongok rushed in carrying a pile of food and cheerfully broke the tense silence. I brought the steamed buns. But the moment he entered, Bongok froze and pointed at the person before him in complete shock. This was the beginning of the fateful bond between the great Duo and Joker Sued. That night, fierce lightning split the sky above a fortress with towering red pillars and slanted eaves. It was the Iron Flag Alliance. Inside its famous grand restaurant, the atmosphere was loud and lively. Everyone was enjoying a hearty meal to prepare for work. Hot dishes were neatly arranged on the tables. Ban Hyo slowly picked up a piece of tofu. He calmly lifted it, ate it slowly, and chewed while deep in thought. Then Ban Hyo looked at Bongok and said, I can't stand him. His face was filled with killing intent. Ban Hyo's sudden remark left Bongok stunned. What? Seeing Bongok's confusion, he pointed his chopsticks to the right. I'm talking about our team leader. They both turned and saw Duo calmly enjoying his meal. Unlike Ban Hyo, Bongok smiled brightly. Really, I think he's not bad. Ban Hyo frowned and fell silent again. Ban Hyo lowered his head, his face darkening. You've only served 2 team leaders, right? I've served 8. You remember the previous team leader, don't you? He was like a martial hero. He appeared like a hero and died like one too. What's the point of dying gloriously? What about those of us left behind? We're not righteous warriors, let alone martial heroes. We're just wandering swordsmen earning a living. If someone paid enough to risk our lives, that'd be different, but foot soldiers like us. Before he could finish, the old man cut him off. That's enough, just eat. Just as you said, everyone is simply trying to make a living. Ban Hyo obeyed at once, lowered his head, and devoured his meal like a starving tiger. Today's food was better than usual, I have to admit. Across from him, Bongok sighed helplessly. You're never satisfied, now it's tastier and you're still complaining. Ban Hyo suddenly looked up in realization. Feeding the troops this well means only one thing, a major battle is coming. Duo, sitting beside him, quietly pondered while eating. That night, inside the solemn assembly hall, a large banner hung in the center, bearing the bold character Iron. At that moment, the Iron Flag Alliance's main council meeting was underway. The Iron Flag Alliance's supreme leader, Siamun Byok, spoke slowly yet powerfully. We've located the 9 Wheels cult stronghold. Everyone at the council table was instantly shaken. None of them could hide the shock in their eyes. Only Inso, the Black Flag Hall leader, remained seated with his eyes closed, calming his mind while deep in thought. Suddenly, a man stood decisively, spread a large map across the table, and prepared to discuss military affairs. He pointed a wooden rod directly at the center of the map. He was Pyong's trusted aide, declaring that the 9 Wheels cult's forward base was on Old Tiger Mountain in southern Gansu. The man beside him studied the map carefully and stroked his beard. If it's Old Tiger Mountain, a fast horse can reach it within a day. The young man beside him gritted his teeth. the Nine Wheels cult has already reached our doorstep. Another bold man proposed, now that we know the enemy's camp, there's no need to wait any longer. After a brief thought, Siamun-byok ordered, the raid will begin in 2 days, so hall leaders prepare for the full assault. Everyone at the meeting fell silent in agreement. Then Byok turned toward Inso and called Hall Leader N. Once the vanguard departs, can your unit move immediately? And so gave a firm nod, his expression unwavering, proving once again how dependable he was. Suddenly, Chief Guardian Un-Irayo spoke up. Is it really appropriate to decide such an important matter while the alliance leader is absent? Hearing that, Byok couldn't help smirking. Leaning back in his chair, he replied, Guardian Un makes a fair point. Such an important matter should indeed be decided by the alliance leader. Pyong smiled faintly. I explained everything and asked the alliance leader to attend personally, but he said not to disturb him. Hearing that, Byok formally declared, since the alliance leader's seat is effectively vacant, I'll have to make the decision myself. Those words left Arayo speechless. She quietly gripped the edge of her robe as her body trembled, looking deeply wronged and unwilling to accept it. A few hours later, amid a field of blooming crimson roses, an ancient pavilion stood quietly on the green lawn beneath a clear sky. A man's sturdy hand gently reached for a rose. That man was Un-Ijun, the alliance leader of the Iron Flag Alliance. He carried himself with calm elegance as he slowly raised the rose and savored its gentle fragrance. Yet the next instant his eyes turned dark and unreadable, filled with savage coldness. With one swift slash, Un-Ijun cut the rose cleanly from its stem. The vibrant crimson rose quietly fell to the ground. Staring at the remaining stem, he revealed a sinister, contemptuous smile. Suddenly a voice called out, Brother. Un-Ijun let out a sigh, knowing trouble had arrived. Irayo hurried straight into the courtyard and demanded, why didn't you attend the headquarters meeting? Ijun casually dusted off his hands and replied, everyone manages just fine without me. Irayo completely disagreed. That attitude makes you unworthy of being the alliance leader of the Iron Flag Alliance. Ijun sneered and looked her straight in the eyes. I never wanted to become the alliance leader. His stubbornness made Irayo grit her teeth in frustration. He spread his hands helplessly. I only became the alliance leader because I'm the last male of the family. If you had been born a man, that position would have been yours. That's an undeniable fact. Because I was born a man, I had to take the seat I never wanted, while you, because you're a woman, are still unmarried at 30 and must stay here taking care of me. Ijun's teasing left Arayo grinding her teeth in helpless frustration. A while later, the brother and sister walked out side by side when a gentle, sweet voice called, Alliance leader. Found you. 3 young women ran toward Ijun, each graceful and beautiful. His eyes immediately softened as he looked down at the 3 beauties. Ijun ignored his junior sister, embraced the 3 women, and leisurely walked away. Arayo could only stand there helplessly and let out a deep sigh. The next moment, she threw herself into the cool river. Arayo thought to herself that this was the only place she could vent her anger. She plunged beneath the water, leaving only a few ripples behind. After staying underwater for a while and calming down, Arayo surfaced and let out a long breath. She climbed ashore, collapsed to her knees, and tried to steady her breathing. Suddenly, a huge explosion erupted from the opposite bank, drawing her attention. Curious by nature, Arayo slowly moved closer to investigate. She soon noticed someone standing there, and it was Duo. He was fully focused on training with his blade, his upper body bare. He paid no attention to his surroundings, and every move was swift and decisive. Duo kept swinging his weapon, spun powerfully through the air, and finished with a determined gaze. His physique was flawless. He let out a breath and steadied his breathing after completing the technique. Finally, he slung the blade onto his back and sheathed it as a gentle aura radiated around him. Watching the man train without pause, Arayo was completely stunned and watched him intently beneath a tree. The longer she watched, the more amazed she became by Duo's skill. Without realizing it, Arayo slowly stepped closer. She hesitantly asked, "Are you from the Iron Flag Alliance?" Duo kept practicing without the slightest distraction, though he had clearly heard her. Arayo realized that too and became even more surprised. Is he ignoring me? She looked at the gleaming, powerful blade in Duo's hand. Arayo couldn't help praising it. That's a beautiful blade. Only then did Duo glance at her, his brows slightly furrowing. He gently stroked the treasured blade and said, "This is my only companion." Arayo nodded and asked, "Does it have a name?" Duo sheathed the blade and replied, "It doesn't need one, companionship is enough." Suddenly, a chilly breeze swept past, making Arayo's soaked body tense. She looked down at herself as her hands went numb from the cold, and her wet clothes whipped by the wind made her shiver nonstop. Without a word, Duo slowly walked over to the branch where his clothes hung. He grabbed his black outer robe and took it in his hand. Then he turned toward Irayo, who was trembling from the cold. She had to wrap her arms around herself for warmth. Standing before her was Duo, whose body was still radiating heat after training and looked warmly comforting. Irayo quietly looked toward Duo. She saw him firmly shake out his cloak. A black-gray robe fluttered before Irayo, filling her with joy. But reality was different, as Duo put the robe on himself without even glancing at her. His action left Irayo frozen for 5 seconds, unable to understand what had happened. Duo simply walked away in the robe without looking back, while Irayo was left completely confused. She couldn't help blurting out, "What the hell?" Back at the house where Duo and Joker Su had first met, he slowly adjusted his clothes as he walked inside. As soon as he saw Duo, Bangok stepped forward and reported, "Team leader, there's a meeting of all team leaders and you're needed immediately." Looking at him, Duo asked, "You are?" He eagerly replied, "I'm Bangok." Duo showed no reaction, turned around and walked off as Bangok called after him, "Take care." He simply replied and left. Manhwa muttered from behind, "There are only 9 of us, and the team leader still can't remember our names." Bangok immediately defended Duo. "Manhwa, you always call me kid too." Resting his chin on his hand, Manhwa asked, "You don't like being called kid?" Bangok immediately answered, "Of course not." Manhwa suddenly became serious. "I used to visit a brothel and there was a girl named me Bangok." Bangok naturally didn't believe him and shouted, "Liar." Manhwa ignored him and kept talking. Looking closely, not only the name, even the face is similar. Now Bangok froze and hesitantly asked, "Huh, really?" Seizing the chance to tease him, Manhwa sprang up, leaned close and said, "From now on I'll call you by your full name, me Bangok." Meanwhile, inside the Black Flag Division conference room, Black Flag Division leader and So was one of the 2 chairmen, sitting with folded arms and closed eyes. Deputy Division Leader Jung Jiok, the other chairman, announced, "In 2 days, we'll launch the final assault on the cult's stronghold at the Earthen Fortress on Tiger Mountain. Our Black Flag Division will lead the attack and strike before the main offensive begins. We depart tomorrow night and travel only after dark. Any questions?" Everyone listened carefully, but no one spoke. Sometime later, the meeting ended, and everyone began leaving. Suddenly, a voice stopped Duo. "Wait." A proud-looking young man stepped before him and asked, "You're the new leader of Joker Suad, aren't you?" Annoyed, Duo frowned but politely gave a slow nod. The young man extended his hand. "A pleasure to meet you. I'm Ma Chung, leader of the Heavenly Squad." Having no interest in introductions, Duo walked straight past without another word. His reaction made Ma Chung widen his eyes and grit his teeth. "He ignored me." Unwilling to let it go, he turned around and demanded, "I heard you even disrespected the division leader, so won't you at least state your name? Even with Protector Han backing you, you should know your place." Those words struck Duo's nerves. He shot Ma Chung, a cold glare, murderous intent flashing in his eyes. "You think I have someone backing me?" Duo's low, icy voice made Ma Chung flinch. Duo gripped the saber on his back with his left hand. "The only thing backing me is this saber." Ma Chung refused to back down and shouted, "Your team is nothing but defeated soldiers who ran from the battlefield. Do you really think trash like them gives you the right to be arrogant?" Duo didn't care, turned away, and calmly said, "As long as you're alive, there's still a chance." That night, heavy rain poured as the capital's army officially marched out. They advanced in a long column, every soldier wearing a black cloak. At the front of the unit, some carried battle flags while others held swords and spears. Among the soldiers was Bangok, staring straight at the man leading them, Duo. He recalled shouting days earlier, "I want to become stronger too," and Duo replying, "Then survive. It's not accepting death that makes you stronger, but struggling to survive." Those words were deeply engraved in Bangok's mind. He smiled with quiet confidence. Suddenly, a blast of hot breath brushed his ear, making Bangok shudder in shock. It was Manhwa teasing him, "You look even better when you're soaked." The shameless joke drove Bangok mad and he shouted in anger. But they were marching in secret, so the old veteran instantly turned around and clamped a hand over Bangok's mouth. After marching a few more hours, they decided to rest. The leaders gathered to discuss the plan, and Jong-du spoke first. "According to our information, about 1/3 of the 9 Wheels cult's forces are stationed at Old Tiger Mountain." Duo, sitting opposite him, asked, "Based on what?" Jong-du explained, "The 9 Wheels cult has 9 envoys, and 3 of them are currently at Old Tiger Mountain. 3rd Wheel, Wandering Soul Foxclaw Ha-hyung Wel, 6th Dragon Wai Tongji, 9th Wheel White Horse Silver Hammer Kang Su Shim. Other than the hall leader and deputy hall leader, no one here can defeat those 3. Among them, Ha-hyung Wel is someone even the hall leader can't confidently beat, so avoid facing him at all costs." Ma Chung frowned and asked, "So if we meet him, we run?" Jong-du answered in a low voice, making the atmosphere turn cold, "If you want to play the hero, go ahead. But our mission is to hold the enemy until the main force arrives, so preserve as much strength as possible. Ma Chung still looked unconvinced. Aren't envoys only below the cult leader? Wouldn't killing one envoy be better than killing 100 grunts? Zhang Du folded his arms and sighed wearily. If you can do it, I won't stop you. The first and second units will enter from the left, while the third, fourth, and our fifth unit will enter from the right. Who will take the lead? All three squad leaders froze. Then Ma Chung slammed his hand onto the ground and confidently volunteered. Leave it to our heavenly squad. His eyes radiated absolute confidence. At that moment, Duo slowly raised his head. Zhang Du then assigned the vanguard to Joker Squad. The other two, especially Ma Chung, were deeply shocked. But Zhang Du said nothing more and immediately ordered everyone to move out. Without hesitation, Duo turned and walked away, leaving Ma Chung glaring furiously behind him. Grinding his teeth, Ma Chung spat out a dark curse, Duo. Before long, they reached a range of towering mountains. Here, sheer cliffs rose high above bottomless depths. Joker Squad carefully edged along a narrow cliff path barely wide enough for 1 foot, moving single file inch by inch. Each time they placed a hand on the cliff, loose rocks crumbled and fell. The old veteran thought, this sandstone cliff crumbles the moment I touch it. We could trigger a rock slide here and use it to cover our assault. Of course, that would mean we'd be buried with it, crushed by the very trap we set. Even so, they lowered their bodies further and kept inching forward, but things couldn't stay peaceful forever. With a single step, the sandstone beneath them cracked apart. It shattered instantly, sending the old man falling off the cliff. However, Joker Squad had expected this and tied ropes around their waists as safety lines. But those ropes also caused trouble, as the old man's fall pulled Bangak forward with him. Manhwa reacted immediately and pressed himself tightly against the cliff. His teeth chattered as he tensed every muscle in his body. Manhwa and Duo now struggled to hold the two below, keeping them from falling to their deaths. Bangak looked into the endless abyss below, where roaring winds blew over piles of white bones, making him curl up in terror and scream. Manhwa was drenched in sweat from the strain and shouted, "Stop screaming, kid. If you yell, the plan will be ruined and we'll all be finished. Even if you fall, don't make a sound, got it?" Then he looked at Duo and wondered, "Captain, what's your plan?" The old man and Bangak were still hanging in midair, clinging tightly to the rope. Seeing this, Duo fell into thought. Then he gripped the rope with one hand. With the other, he reached behind himself and slowly drew his blade. Manhwa widened his eyes in disbelief. Are you going to sacrifice them? But Duo did not. Instead, he drove the blade into the cliff behind him to anchor himself. Then he used his free, powerful right hand to pull the rope upward. Seeing that, Manhwa let out a sigh of relief. He secretly thought, didn't expect you to have a soft side. Soon, Bangak finally reached the top of the cliff. He struggled up with tears still in his eyes when a deep voice praised him. Well done, kid. At least you didn't scream like usual. On the other side, Duo was still holding firm as he waited for the old man to climb up. The old man finally reached the top, panting heavily. Then he turned to Duo and said, "I'm sorry, Captain." Duo ignored the apology and looked at the hand gripping the ropes, thinking, the weight felt lighter than before. Could one of them have learned a lightness technique? No secret stays hidden forever. The old man understood that as well and silently wondered, has he figured it out? At my age, I still ended up owing someone. Before long, they reached their destination, a vast capital city. The group quietly hid behind the cliff and observed. Duo frowned, strange, why is it so quiet? After everyone gathered, Duo spoke, listen carefully. We're the vanguard, but once the battle begins, we'll immediately fall back to the rear, understood? Bangak looked utterly confused. We're the vanguard, but we're retreating. Duo looked him in the eyes. You said you wanted to become stronger, didn't you? Then obey my orders if you don't want to die before that happens. Those words strengthened Bangak's resolve, and he quietly nodded. As they approached the city gate, a desolate scene came into view. Duo charged forward first. As the operation began, Joker Squad followed, all sprinting toward the gate. Suddenly, Duo noticed something was wrong. He immediately signaled the troops behind him. The entire group took cover beneath the wall as Duo ordered them to stay close to it. The members watched the people ahead with determined expressions. It was Jung Jiok and Enso's group. They quietly said, "There's no one here." Zhang Du also appeared from the opposite side. As he approached, Jung Jiok asked, "Did you encounter any enemies over there?" And so firmly replied, "No, not a single one." Either the enemy stronghold report was wrong, or they had already fled. And so closed his eyes in thought, unsure what to do next. Suddenly a panic shout rang out, "Fall back." Looking up, they saw a volley of flaming arrows raining down. The arrows were razor sharp and filled with killing intent. They landed right in front of Joker Squad. Seeing this, the old man was shocked. So it was a trap. Bangak exclaimed, "Didn't the division leader order us to retreat?" Duo quickly reassured everyone, "Don't panic and lose your composure." Ahead of them, Ma Chung's group was fleeing at full speed. Duo spotted them, his face turning grim. Ma Ching also noticed Duo. In a brief moment of distraction, he tripped over a rock. He tumbled headfirst onto the ground. Does it hurt? Of course it hurts, Ma Ching groaned with a flushed face. His face already hurt, then he caught Duo's scornful gaze. He immediately turned pale and sprang to his feet. Then he bolted away, without hesitating for another second. Joker Squad silently watched Ma Chung's hasty retreat. The old man reported seriously, they're retreating toward the cliff. Duo calmly picked up the saber Ma Chung had dropped. Getting in was hard enough, they'll be exhausted if they have to fight while clinging to the cliff. Bongok asked worriedly, should we stop them? Duo shook his head. It's useless. Fear buries reason and makes people act on instinct. As he finished speaking, another volley of flaming arrows came flying in. Gripping his saber tightly, Duo leaped into the air. Right now, before they can prepare a third volley, we'll charge into their camp. At the same time, a powerful older man's voice echoed from afar. Tiger Mountain will become the grave of the Iron Flag Alliance, and none of you will leave these ruins alive. However, if you surrender and offer yourselves as sacrifices, your lives. Before Tongji could finish speaking, a sharp weapon shot toward him. It aimed straight for his vital point, but Tongji swiftly knocked it aside. Before he could recover, Duo and his group were already before him. Duo shouted, anyone who blocks my path will die. Even if countless troops stand in the way, keep charging forward, break through every defense, and never stop attacking. As soon as he finished speaking, both sides charged into battle, and the clash of steel rang out without end. A soldier shouted, unlucky for you, but on the battlefield, if I don't kill you, you'll kill me. Standing before him was Bongok, who shrank back and screamed in terror. But an instant later, the old veteran cut the enemy's head clean off. As fresh blood splashed down, Bongok's vision blurred and everything seemed to slow. Bongok stared at his hands, recalling Duo's words, fear buries reason and makes us act on instinct. The moon hung quietly overhead, gently illuminating the silent land. Through the quiet forest, Joker Squad raced forward at full speed. Suddenly, Duo decisively raised his hand, signaling everyone to stop. He quickly pointed toward a rocky outcrop. Thick fog gradually spread, covering the broad treetops. Behind the rock, Duo silently observed the surroundings to ensure his squad's safety. Turning back with fresh blood still on his forehead, he ordered sternly, we'll rest here for now. Finish them quickly. The squad members relaxed as if they had been pardoned. Manhwa dropped to the ground, gasping, when he noticed something strange about the person beside him. Bongok stood motionless, quietly muttering to himself as the atmosphere around him grew darker. Suddenly, Manhwa walked over and slapped him hard on the shoulder. Kid, you fought well. That unconscious touch enraged Bongok, whose mind still wasn't clear. Acting on instinct, he swung both spears at Manhwa, catching him completely off guard. But Duo reacted instantly. As the squad leader, he rushed over and firmly grabbed Bongok's weapons. His gaze turned even colder as he said, didn't I already tell you? Fear controls your reason and makes you act on instinct. Those words instantly snapped Bongok back to reality. He stammered, Captain. Seeing Bongok recover, Manhwa immediately shouted, damn it, you almost scared the hell out of me, you bastard. The old veteran remained calm. He stepped over and asked, I thought I saw you get stabbed. Are you all right? As he touched the wound on Bongok's arm, Bongok flinched in pain while the old veteran carefully bandaged it and muttered, fortunately, it's not deep, just a few scratches. Seeing only part of his left arm bandaged while the rest was merely stained red, Bongok was stunned. Then whose blood is this? His arm began trembling as the old veteran asked in surprise, you don't remember anything. Bongok shook his head with tears in his eyes, realizing what he had done, and turned deathly pale as he covered his face in panic. The next moment, Bongok's legs gave out and the old veteran caught him, thinking, this kid is far from ordinary. A while later, the old veteran reported to Duo, it seems no one was seriously injured. I think we're the first group to escape. When are we leaving? Duo answered flatly, after the main force arrives. The old veteran's eyes darkened as he thought, so we'll keep ambushing here, avoiding the enemy's scouts while letting the main force attack first. Since they expected our ambush, they've surely trapped the escape routes too. Does he intend to let the main force pass through first because none of us knows where the traps are? After thinking it over, he asked, Captain, should we join the main force? Duo looked at him in surprise. Do you want to play the hero? The old veteran smiled faintly and replied, of course not. Are you certain the main force can escape safely without my help? Duo answered seriously, our leaders are not weak. Meanwhile, the enemy camp was in ruins with flames everywhere as Tongji gritted his teeth and spat out, and so. Trembling amid the wreckage, he cursed furiously, and so, you bastard. Manhwa slowly approached with an axe and calmly said, calm yourself, Lord Tongji. Those insects won't leave fierce Tiger Mountain alive. Hearing that, Tongji smiled strangely. That's right, exactly. because this mountain has 2 more canyons. At the same time, Enso's group quickly arrived at the first canyon. He and Zhangdu led the troops, while Zhangdu quietly grabbed the arrows on his back. Then he threw the arrows onto the ground. Zhangdu turned to look at the people behind him. He couldn't help worrying, are we the only ones left alive? Enso nodded slightly, thinking, this is dangerous, but we have no other choice. Then Enso made his decision and gave the order, charge through as fast as you can. The troops immediately rushed through the canyon. On the way, Zhangdu suddenly glanced up at the cliff. He muttered quietly for only Enso to hear, strange, they wouldn't pass up such a perfect place for an ambush. As soon as he finished speaking, the answer appeared before them as a strange warm light. How can there be light inside a canyon? Sensing danger, Enso signaled the troops to stop. Ahead of them, blazing torches flickered brightly. Their flames crackled vividly in the cold, desolate canyon. Between the torches stood a massive army armed with spears and weapons. Leading the opposing force was a man with a confident smile, wearing sharp metal claws on both hands. He was one of the 3 dragons' generals, the cunning fox Ha Hyang Weal. Zhangdu's eyes widened as sweat poured down. Stammering in shock, he said, that's Ha Hyang Weal. And so remained perfectly calm and quickly drew his sword into a fighting stance. Across from him, Hyang Weal showed no sign of backing down. He raised a hand in command, and a unit of archers instantly took position and aimed at their targets. And so analyzed the situation. They want a head-on fight instead of an ambush, but if I extinguish those torches, escaping in the darkness will be much easier. His next move immediately caught Hyang Weal's attention. Fearless Enso firmly stepped forward. His posture was proud and utterly fearless. Hyang Weal sneered, Black Flag Division leader Enso, I've heard plenty about you, Butcher Enso. We finally meet. Will you surrender? I don't want to kill you, especially for a few worthless arrows. And so ignored the taunt, leaped forward without hesitation, and shouted, enough nonsense. Hyang Weal clearly thought he was charging to his death. He clicked his tongue and slashed his left hand downward, ordering the attack. Instantly, thousands of arrows shot through the air toward them. Enso's agile body dashed through the rain of arrows and quickly closed in on his target. With one powerful slash, he cut down the torch stand before him. Without stopping, he charged toward the next one, his eyes filled with icy resolve. Only then did Hyang Weal realize his intention and shouted, shoot him, he's after the torches. The moment he spoke, something came hurtling straight toward him. Without caring what it was, Hyang Weal immediately knocked it away. But the instant he swatted aside the blazing torch stand, another red-gold streak came hurtling toward him. At the center of the flash stood Enso, appearing like a god with unbelievable speed. Hyang Weal had no time to react and quickly crossed both arms to defend. Seizing the chance, Zhangdu and the soldiers immediately charged into battle. Hyang Weal's followers refused to yield as the archer captain stammered, shoot him now. A fierce battle erupted as both sides clashed, with Hyang Weal and Enso at its center. Suddenly, Hyang Weal sensed killing intent from his flank. He turned sharply and saw Zhangdu, who unleashed a powerful, decisive slash. Forced to dodge backward, Hyang Weal hesitated no longer, fled at once, and Enso's group also retreated so fast that even arrows couldn't reach them. By the time Hyang Weal realized the plan, it was too late, and he roared with murderous rage, Enso, we'll meet again soon. A few hours later, dawn was beginning to break, and after the battle, Enso's right side was still bleeding without stopping. Gritting his teeth, he kept moving while enduring the pain from his wound. The troops hurried down the road through the dense forest. Zhangdu ran behind him and naturally noticed something was wrong. Looking back, he saw many soldiers suffering from painful wounds and thought, too many are injured. We have to leave this place as quickly as possible. After a while, the army reached a crossroads. They stopped briefly as the exhausted soldiers gasped for air, their pale faces showing relief that they had finally escaped the canyon. Even Zhangdu planted his massive mace into the ground and let out a heavy breath. But peace never lasted long as they suddenly saw a long sword flying toward them. Once again, Enso drew his sword and prepared for battle. Before them appeared a force of red-armored cavalry riding powerful warhorses. Zhangdu clenched his teeth helplessly and cursed, damn it, there's an ambush here too. No matter how far we run, we can't escape this cavalry's blades. The sound of galloping hooves echoed across the ground. A young man appeared atop a white horse, radiating commanding presence. 9 dragons, a white warhorse with silver chains, Kang Su-shim asked, are you the butcher Enso? You look smaller than I expected, though perhaps that's because I'm looking down from my horse. Don't you think butcher doesn't suit him at all? A subordinate behind him nodded. Yes, sir. Su Shim looked In the eyes and sneered, "It doesn't matter, no matter how he looks. I heard he's among the Iron Flag Alliance's top masters." As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his chain spear, its silver tip flashing with deadly cold as it struck the ground. With a smug grin, he declared, "Consider it an honor to die by Kang Su Shim's silver chain." To display his strength, he swung the chain again, spreading murderous intent through the air. Zhangdu realized the situation had grown desperate. Their forces were exhausted while the enemy cavalry remained overwhelming. So he raised his mace and said, "Division leader, let me fight him." But Inso had another plan and would not allow Zhangdu to act recklessly. Denied permission, Zhangdu could only grit his teeth and mutter, "Division leader." Inso's sword trembled constantly, for he had spent too much strength in earlier battles, yet he could not stand by and watch his men fall. Seeing this, Su Shim became even more confident and swung his silver chain with greater force. Suddenly, a series of low footsteps sounded behind them as another force approached. It was Joker's squad led by Duo, and they had arrived. Inso's soldiers automatically moved aside, clearing a path for Joker's squad. Duo quickly assessed the situation. "There's no escape here," the old veteran agreed. "If we don't deal with this now, we'll be scattered and hunted down." Duo made his decision without hesitation. "In that case, we'll kill their leader and break through the enemy." The moment he finished, he and the entire squad charged forward together. The old veteran rushed after Duo and asked, "Didn't you say you weren't interested in becoming a hero?" Duo calmly replied, "That's right, I don't follow the path of a hero but the path of survival." Manhwa shouted as he charged, "We've run all night, so don't kill their horses. We'll ride them out of here." Seeing their reckless charge, Zhangdu was so shocked he stammered, "Those fools." Before he could finish, Su Shim hurled his chain dart straight ahead. Its silver tip shot directly toward Bangok, who was charging forward. He never expected the attack, but just before it struck him, Banhyo blocked it with his weapon. However, the chain dart wrapped tightly around his spear. Banhyo confidently grinned, "I've got it now, you bastard." Hearing that, Su Shim could only sigh helplessly. Then he violently spurred his horse forward. Receiving the command, the horse immediately reared up and lunged backward. The white horse's movement dragged Banhyo along with his weapon. Both of them were pulled forward together as Banhyo desperately planted his feet, trying to keep hold of his spear. Seeing this, the old veteran shouted helplessly, "Banhyo, let go of your weapon." But Banhyo refused. "Don't be ridiculous, I'm the stabbing snake. Once I bite, I never let go." Su Shim found that amusing and chuckled. Then he urged his horse even faster and spun it around in a full turn. Banhyo couldn't react, or rather couldn't do anything, as Su Shim dragged him away. After pulling him for a distance, Su Shim suddenly released the chain. Losing all momentum, Banhyo flew backwards straight toward the old veteran. The instant Banhyo lost his grip, Su Shim snatched the spear from his hands. Examining it, he nodded in admiration. "This truly is a terrifying weapon." Before he could finish mocking them, he heard a subordinate shout, "Watch out, sir." At that moment, Duo seized the opportunity and dashed in at full speed. Furious, Su Shim swung the chain dart and roared, "How dare you!" Yet Duo effortlessly dodged it with a slight sidestep. He shot across the ground like an arrow, sliding beneath the unlucky horse. The white horse let out a piercing neigh, making Su Shim curse in frustration. Watching from afar and so quietly analyzed, Kang Su Shim's silver chain attacks are impossible to predict. That's why he slipped beneath the horse into the chain's blind spot. But a horse's hooves are deadly weapons too. One stomp would shatter his bones and crush his organs. Su Shim naturally knew that and ordered, "Trample him." The white horse obeyed and stomped toward Duo, but Duo had already reached for the blade on his back. One slash flashed through the air with a streak of steel. The horse went mad in pain and threw Su Shim off its back. He only managed a single scream before crashing to the ground, while the horse bolted away. Seeing their hall leader fall, one of his subordinates immediately spurred his horse forward. But before he could get far, a pair of spears blocked his path. Bangok gripped his weapon tightly and declared, "I'm your opponent." Those words left Duo and Su Shim stunned, and Su Shim glared at him. Yet Bangok's eyes were filled with determination, while the man across from him looked ready to explode. At that moment, Duo faced Su Shim while Bangok fought Mungi. Su Shim gritted his teeth, knowing this wouldn't be easy. Duo remained expressionless and quietly prepared himself. Su Shim refused to back down and steadied his chain spear. Then he forcefully hurled the chain spear forward. The chain spear shot through the air unstoppable, but Duo swiftly dodged it and thought, so fast. Seizing the chance, Su Shim repeatedly launched the chain spear at lightning speed. Duo dodged every attack again and again. The chain spear showed no mercy, and on its final strike it smashed straight into the unfortunate white horse's head. As the dust settled, Duo stood frozen. Looking at the horse, he realized its head had been crushed with a single blow. Feeling he had shown enough of his skill, Su Shim taunted, "Your turn." He wasn't foolish enough to let Duo get close, so he used the chain spear to create a defensive barrier. Su Shim was utterly confident, believing Duo could never win without entering its attack range. At once, Duo drew his blade and charged like a thunderbolt. Su Shim hooked the chain around his leg and kicked it away. "I won't give you the chance." The silver spearhead shot straight toward Duo. He quickly blocked it with his blade, but the overwhelming force of the chain spear caused a thunderous explosion that blasted him away. Duo's feet skidded across the rocky ground. He had to drop into a crouch to steady himself. Duo let out a low grunt and thought, "His strikes are incredibly powerful." Without hesitation, Su Shim whipped the silver chain skyward, then slammed it down with a smug grin and shouted, "Die." Duo easily dodged again as the falling chain shattered the ground. Duo quickly leaped backward. Su Shim kept spinning the chain spear as he advanced and said, "You're making this interesting. How can an ordinary foot soldier with no principles, willing to sell his sword for a few coins, fight like this?" Duo said nothing and only breathed heavily. Meanwhile, Bonguk and Mungi were about to clash. Bonguk glanced back and softly called, "Captain." That single moment of distraction was enough for Mungi to attack. He brought his weapon down, but Bonguk blocked it in time. Mungi sneered, "You're confident enough to take your eyes off me." Watching from afar, the old man broke into a cold sweat. Bonguk, that reckless kid. He was fighting a cavalry spearman armed with a long spear using only a short spear. The weapon's length was one problem, but attacks from above were far stronger than those from below. If he wanted a better chance of winning, he had to knock his opponent off the horse like the captain had done. Realizing it, the old man immediately shouted, "Bonguk, attack the horse." Of course, Mungi wasn't about to allow that and launched a fierce assault. "You think I'll let him do as he pleases?" Bonguk ignored him, leaped off the ground, and used his small frame to soar into the air. Mungi was completely bewildered. "What?" Bonguk raised both spears high, ready to dive down. Mungi leaned back, preparing to counterattack. The moment he thrust his spear, Bonguk had already vanished. Mungi looked around in confusion, wondering where he had gone. Like a ghost, Bonguk suddenly appeared behind him. Sensing the killing intent, Mungi spun around and thrust backward, but Bonguk's move left him stunned. The spear missed completely, and Bonguk was calmly standing on its gleaming tip. His body seemed weightless, floating with incredible grace. Seeing this, the old man was astonished. How could he use such an extraordinary lightness technique? Duo glanced back, having already known about it. He recalled when the old man and Bonguk nearly fell off the cliff. The rope had suddenly become lighter because of Bonguk. Back to the battle, Mungi attacked again as Bonguk leaped up to evade. Then he landed lightly on the ground right in front of him. Mungi began to panic and stammered, "Who the hell are you?" In the distance, and so had witnessed everything. He fell silent, slowly drifting into old memories. On the first day, Bonguk arrived at the Black Flag Division of the Iron Flag Alliance. And So and Zhangdu were the first to speak with Bonguk and Wuryang. Wuryang laughed heartily. "Then I guess the Black Flag Division will take this child." Zhangdu calmly asked, "What's your name?" He replied hesitantly, "I'm me, Bonguk." Zhangdu continued, "What weapon are you best with?" Bonguk answered briefly, "I've trained in spear techniques." Zhangdu asked again, "Who taught you to use a spear?" Unexpectedly, Bonguk hesitated and remained silent. And So quietly evaluated him. His surname was Mi, and he knew the spear. Could he be the son of the Mi family that lived in the mountain manor? Realizing the situation was difficult, Mungi slowly dismounted. He immediately attacked without mercy. Watching from afar, and So broke into a cold sweat. Bonguk had forced an opponent with the advantage of horseback to dismount because his skill was that intimidating. Across the battlefield, Mungi charged furiously toward Bonguk. The clash of steel echoed repeatedly as sparks flew everywhere. Bonguk rushed forward like the wind, spinning both spears so fast they were almost invisible. Mungi hurriedly raised his spear to block the attack. Back to Duo and Su Shim. Duo wasted no time and immediately leaped forward. Seeing this, Su Shim let out a faint sneer. He swung the silver chain spear and kicked straight at Duo. Once again, he barely dodged as the silver tip grazed his neck, and Su Shim seized the chance before he could react. He swung the silver chain spear again, and this time its silver tip smashed straight into his head. Duo was blasted backward by the impact and crashed to the ground. Su Shim quickly reeled the chain back. It all happened so fast that even the calm and So was stunned, gritting his teeth in fury. Bongok was also shocked and shouted twice, "Captain." On the other side, Duo quickly sat up. Amid the white dust, he slowly struggled to his feet. His right forehead and eye were badly wounded, blood pouring down, and though Duo clenched his teeth in agony, he never cried out. Su Shim smiled triumphantly and admitted, "I have to praise your endurance. I can't believe you still stood up after my silver chain struck your head. But this ends here, enough playing around. I'll finish this with my next move." The silver tip then opened into 5 sharp blades, multiplying its killing power. Seeing the dire situation, Duo felt even more pressure. "Damn it, my head's about to explode." Focus, think, keep thinking. His weapon can lengthen or shorten its swing radius, giving it unlimited reach. When the chain is long, I can clearly see the silver weight's movement and dodge it. But when he shortens it, the swing becomes smaller and much faster, making it nearly impossible to dodge. If I charge in and counter the slow, long swing, I'll be hit by the short, fast one, so closing the distance like this is too dangerous. Sweating heavily, he gritted his teeth and made up his mind. Then, Duo suddenly charged straight at Su Shim. His eyes locked onto the silver chain. He thrust out his right arm and let the silver chain wrap around it, enduring its tremendous force. He fixed a bullet-like stare on Su Shim. Since he couldn't reach him, Duo would pull him closer instead. And it clearly worked to some extent, as Su Shim was caught off guard and lost his balance. But he quickly regained his confidence and cursed inwardly, "Idiot." Then he pulled out another silver chain. Su Shim spun the silver chain and shouted, "Still don't understand that closing the distance is useless." Duo remained calm without the slightest panic. Duo stayed calm and firmly gripped his blade with his left hand. Then Duo suddenly hurled the blade straight at Su Shim. Su Shim looked up at Duo with contempt. "Throwing away your only weapon, is that your last move? If that's what you want, then die." As soon as he finished speaking, he swung the silver chain spear. The razor-sharp silver chain tip shot straight toward Duo. He briefly showed shock at the terrifying speed of the chain, then metal clashed with a brilliant flash. Bongok froze as tears welled up, terrified that his captain was about to die. Fresh blood began pouring onto the ground. Su Shim's eyes were filled with killing intent as he sneered. But suddenly, the silver chain in his hand went taut. That was because Duo had grabbed the striking end of the chain, and his eyes were now filled with absolute resolve. Su Shim instantly turned pale. "Impossible, how did you do that?" From afar, the well-informed old man explained, "The harder a weapon is swung, the more momentum it gains, and as the turning radius shrinks, its speed rises, so a shorter spin can't possibly hold that much power." As soon as he finished, Duo gripped both chains and suddenly charged. At that moment, Su Shim's own weapon became the thing restraining him. "Impossible. It's not just restraining me, it's striking back." The chain spun several times before smashing straight onto Su Shim's head. He had no chance to react before his skull shattered, and he spat blood as he collapsed. The shocking sight left Mangi stunned, his face turning pale and red. Duo showed no mercy and repeatedly lashed the silver chain onto Su Shim's head. Flesh and blood were crushed apart, as if Duo meant to blend Su Shim on the spot. With the fight seemingly half over, he let the chain hang down and gasped for breath. Mangi trembled with rage and let out a furious roar. Then Mangi raised his hand and ordered them all killed. The soldiers had waited long enough, every pair of eyes filled with murderous intent, and so gripped his sword and quietly weighed the situation. Suddenly, Zhongdu stood up behind them. "He's finished meditating, I've rested enough, now it's my turn." Ban Hyo gripped his weapon eagerly. "Fine, today I'll die fighting beside you, you bastards." The knights and Su Shim's followers were no different, charging on horseback in a furious slaughter. Bongok fought 2 at once, his twin spears unleashing a relentless barrage. Before long, corpses covered the ground as dust filled the air. Mangi seized his spear and shouted, "Turn your horses around and attack them all." The cavalry instantly wheeled around and charged back toward the group. Suddenly, a series of powerful battle cries echoed out. Thunderous vibrations swept in like a raging storm. It was the Iron Banner Alliance, charging in with nearly 100 men. At the same time, dawn slowly broke over the Iron Banner Alliance palace. Pyong Pyong. With a stern expression, he walked to the table at the center of the hall. Xiaomonbyok sat in the chief seat. Resting his chin on one hand, he pondered silently as a report came in. Pyong said, "The battle report has arrived." Byok had already guessed it wasn't good news. Then Pyong's next words struck like a crushing stone. "Our assault has failed." The 9 Dragon sect had seen through the plan beforehand. The Black Banner sect was driven into a corner and tried to escape, but the entire force fell into an ambush along the retreat route. A total of 207 Black Banner sect members joined the assault. Among them, 154 were killed or went missing after the 9 Dragon sect's ambush. 33 were critically wounded, 31 lightly wounded, leaving only 53 survivors. Had the main force arrived any later, no one would have survived. As soon as we joined forces with the Black Flag cult, the 9 Dragons cavalry immediately retreated. This was surely the Iron Flag Alliance's worst defeat since its founding. Even so, in our darkest hour, I heard we managed to kill the 9th dragon, Kang Su-shim. After hearing the full report, Byok's face turned grim, but at the last part he blurted, "What? Who killed Kang Su-shim? Was it In-so or Jongdu?" Pyong's answer was even more shocking. "I heard he was only a squad captain. A man named Duo, the new leader of Joker Squad. Joker Squad under Duo has a remarkably high survival rate, 7 out of every 10. Xiaoman Byok's eyes turned dark as he silently repeated the name Duo. Seeing the cult leader deep in thought, Pyong asked, "Should we investigate him?" Byok nodded and softly replied, "Yes, he may be useful someday." After all, the ambush was exposed even though the plan was top secret, meaning someone must have leaked it, right? Pyong shared the same thought. "Yes, sir." Byok frowned and pondered. Other than the headquarters leaders, absolutely no one knew beforehand. That means there's a spy inside the Iron Flag Alliance. Meanwhile, at the familiar steep canyon, the ravine was littered with the bodies of the fallen. Broken wooden arrows remained, while cold corpses lay everywhere. A mountain of dead bodies was piled high, with Ma Chung on top. He suddenly got up and looked around in every direction. Then he hurriedly waddled off in one direction. Elsewhere, beneath a gloomy sky, a fortress carved deep into the cliff stood tall, with thick black smoke rising into the sky. This was Gansu Province, Crimson Gold Canyon, the headquarters of the 9 Dragons cult. Beneath the main building, a group of people gathered to inspect the equipment. 9 Dragons cult vice leader Dugu Jingjing sighed in relief after fixing the machine. It should work now. Jingjing turned around and ordered, "Pull it up." The massive machine started running as white steam poured out non-stop. Everyone cheered, "It's working." An elevator inside the factory slowly rose upward. In front of the gate, many people gathered to watch what was happening inside. The iron gate opened, and an old man with 5 or 6 burly men stepped out. They slowly pushed fuel carts outside. The old man scratched his head and sighed, "Hugh, I thought we'd die down there." Another man stepped forward and said, "You survived thanks to the vice leader." As soon as he finished speaking, Jingjing casually walked over. Everyone greeted the vice leader in unison. She smiled gently. "Good, you fixed it quickly. If the machine has problems again, call me right away. After all, I built it, so I know it best." Suddenly, a man rushed over and reported, "Vice leader, vice leader." Seeing the messenger's panicked face, Jingjing sensed something was wrong. She immediately sprinted through the vast palace toward the main hall. The grand doors were right before her. She dashed forward, pushed the doors open, and shouted, "Father." She walked to the center of the hall in shock. 9 Dragons cult leader, Emperor Daguhong, sat on the main seat and softly called, "Jingjing." She suddenly saw what was lying on the table and froze. It was Kang Su-shim's 2 silver chain spears, placed on a white cloth with a red border. Jingjing stared in horror, unable to believe her eyes, as if her whole world had collapsed. She let out a scream in the vast hall before collapsing to her knees. Before long, night fell, the moon hung high, and everything was peaceful. Ma Chung slowly headed toward the Iron Banner Alliance capital. 2 guards stopped him, and Ma Chung pointed at them and ordered, "Tell them the Heavenly Squad captain of the Black Banner sect has arrived." The guard sighed, "Fine, let him in." Ma Chung glanced at the guard and said nothing. As he entered the city, shocking rumors filled the air. "They say the new Wind Squad captain killed the 9th 9 Dragons warrior, Kang Su-shim." One man exclaimed, "A mere captain killed the 9th 9 Dragons warrior? Impossible." The other shook his head. "Didn't you know? The 9th 9 Dragons warrior was one of the 9 martial venerables of the 9 Dragons sect. What kind of inner energy did he use to defeat such a master, and what technique was it?" The other replied, "I heard he killed that martial venerable with the same silver chain the man always used." Laughter and praise immediately spread. "That captain is truly extraordinary." Ma Chung took 7 quick steps. "How am I, the heavenly leader, being completely ignored? What happened?" Then he noticed the voices coming from a nearby room. Duo was sitting in a chair while No T bandaged him. He asked, "What if they appoint you deputy leader to replace the one who died?" He replied wearily, "I only fought to survive and escape. I don't want a position that means I can never run again." No T nodded. "As long as we're alive, that's enough for a low-ranking soldier like me." Once the bandaging was done, Duo checked his wounds and said, "I feel the same." Elsewhere, Ma Chung arrived at the Iron Banner Alliance palace. He dropped heavily onto a wooden chair, utterly exhausted. Suddenly someone called out, "Heavenly Squad Captain Ma Chung. The Alliance's deputy leader has summoned command you. Ma Chung followed the guard through the grand hall. Ma Chung asked nervously, should I wash up first before meeting the deputy leader to show respect? Soon they reached the meeting room, where Byuk and Pyong were waiting. Ma Chung stammered, I am Ma Chung, Heavenly Squad Captain, reporting as ordered. Byuk's face was filled with anger, veins bulging across his forehead. He asked, is this him? The guard answered, yes. Still confused, Ma Chung had no idea what was happening as Byuk quietly asked Pyong, where did he get the nerve to come back? Then he sneered. Looks like he doesn't know his identity has been exposed. Furious, Byuk's face darkened as he cursed inwardly, pathetic. Ma Chung began to panic and quickly explained, during the battle at the cliff, I was buried beneath the bodies and barely survived. Byuk had no interest in listening and ordered, gather enough evidence for this afternoon's meeting and make him confess everything. The guard replied, yes, sir. Ma Chung was immediately grabbed by the neck and dragged away as he shouted in panic, confess what? Without a word, the guard tightened his grip around his neck. Gasping for air, Ma Chung trembled and glared at the guard. Then he was dragged away without any chance to resist. Byuk turned and ordered, forget the spy story, make sure this afternoon's meeting ends in our favor. Pyong answered, yes, sir. Byuk continued, this failed mission has made the Alliance leader's supporters completely useless. But it's irritating to have a rat lurking right under my feet, so how is the investigation into Do-O going? Pyong reported, we're gathering testimonies and the report will be ready today. Byuk nodded. Very well, you may leave. Pyong slowly left the meeting room. He carefully shut the door behind him. Then a sinister smile appeared as he muttered, I understand. Pyong secretly concluded the deputy leader was no fool to believe Ma Chung was a spy. Outside the city, it's morning, a soldier said. Do-O, back when I was in the youth sect, we fought together against the Six Sects Alliance. He didn't have top-tier inner power, but he fought incredibly well. As far as I know, he defeated many elite warriors of the Six Sects Alliance and was only about 16 or 17. Another soldier scratched his neck and recalled, oh right, that guy was quite famous and fought in many battles. He always carried a strange, nameless sword, and despite using an unknown sword style, no one ever defeated him. Then a civilian recalled, wherever he went, he achieved great feats, yet he was never promoted because his superiors never liked him. I'm not sure, maybe his gaze wasn't respectful enough. Next, a young man sitting nearby replied, he defeated 3 senior masters of the mystic sect. His martial arts were mediocre, yet he always beat opponents far stronger than himself. After that, everyone surrounded him to kill him, but he still escaped like a rat. I spared him once because he was on our side, but if we meet as enemies, I'll kill him. Then it was Han Song's turn and he smiled. Oh, you're talking about Do-O, I was the one who recommended him. Pyong happily asked Han Song, if you know anything about Do-O, please tell me. He scratched his head, I don't know much. The strangest part was that the one who recommended him was the very one saying this. All I know is that, while I was escorting a merchant caravan, a man ran over shouting, sir, sir. Han Song replied, what is it? He reported, please be careful, we're near a bandit hideout, so there's likely an ambush. Han Song reassured him, don't worry, this caravan is protected by the Iron Banner Alliance. No bandit would dare attack after seeing that banner. A fat man behind them chuckled slyly. I know, the Iron Banner Alliance compensates us if we lose anything. Suddenly Han Song sensed something was wrong. He immediately ordered stop. The caravan halted before countless scattered corpses. They panicked, they looked like bandits, but who killed them? Suddenly someone reported, sir, there's a survivor. It was Do-O, leaning against a huge rock and gasping for breath. Han Song approached, introduced himself, and said, I'm Han Song of the Iron Banner Alliance. After being helped up, Do-O muttered, those damn bandits. Han Song was still stunned. I only see dead bandits. Who did this to them? Do-O answered sternly with a commanding gaze, I was just passing through, but they blocked me because they didn't like how I looked. Han Song was shocked. What, so you wiped them all out? Gasping, Do-O replied, after I killed one they all charged at me. Returning to the present, Han Song told Pyong, after I saved him, he said he'd repay me someday, so I only asked him to help the Alliance one day. I never thought he'd really come. Anyway, the bandits in that area were wiped out, trade resumed, but as long as people make a living, new bandits will always appear. After gathering the testimonies, Pyong was about to leave when Irayo asked, is this about the wind unit again? He nodded. That's right. The more we investigate Do-O, the stranger he becomes. How could he kill Kangsu Shim? She shook her head with a sigh. Maybe it was just luck. Pyong quietly stroked his beard. In that case, his luck had run out. Irayo admitted honestly that although his squad suffered heavy losses, defeating the 9th dragon was still his achievement. Pyong's eyes suddenly turned sharp as he smiled slyly. That's right, he used up all his remaining luck. Now he has to pay the price for using that luck. Duo gasped in surprise. 10 silver coins. The Iron Flag Alliance is really generous. I only ran away, yet they still rewarded me. Bangok looked confused. You defeated a dragon and only got 10 coins instead of a promotion. Anyway, we still want you to remain a squad captain. Manhwa reminded them, we're lucky our branch leader wasn't blamed for the failed plan and demoted. Hearing that, he immediately argued, that's because our plan was leaked. Why should the Black Flag cult take the blame? We're the victims here. Just then, someone tossed a money pouch toward Bangok. Duo seriously said, Bangok, go buy meat and liquor for everyone in the Black Flag cult, and Manhwa, go with him so he doesn't get overcharged. Then he simply dragged Bangok away. Let's go, kid. The scene shifted to a rather empty infirmary. A table was covered with medicine and supplies for treating wounds. He and the old man sat together, but neither spoke. At last, the old man broke the silence. You sharpen your sword a lot, don't you? It's like you're sharpening your mind with it. The old man remained seated, quietly muttering. It's already time for their meeting. I'm worried about our branch leader. He's not even fully recovered. At that moment, Arayo asked in shock, was Ma Chung really a spy? Pyong immediately confirmed it. That criminal confessed everything. She still found it hard to believe. Wasn't he the one who worked harder than anyone else? The old man shared his opinion. I think he wanted to climb higher and gather more information from us. If we had recognized his efforts and let him join the meeting, I can't imagine what might have happened. The scene shifted to a crowded, bustling marketplace. Manhwa walked in and said directly, excuse us, we'd like the finest liquor and meat. Hearing that, Bangok reminded him, I don't think we need the expensive kind. We just need enough for the whole Black Flag cult. Before he finished, Manhwa interrupted. Idiots, there are only 50 people in the Black Flag cult and 20 of them are bedridden and can only eat porridge. Elsewhere, Byok declared, since the ambush failed because of a spy, we won't hold the Black Flag cult responsible. But he had no intention of letting the matter end there. Byok quickly stated his condition. No more men will be allowed to join the Black Flag cult. Jongdu disagreed and slammed the table. Even counting the wounded, we only have 30 men fit to fight. Before he could finish, Pyong cut in. Then wouldn't it be better to keep the members the other branch leaders have already recruited? Meanwhile, the old man said to Duo, since the branch leader hasn't returned yet, I guess the meeting is taking a long time. Lying on the bed, he calmly replied, that's normal. An important plan failed because of a spy. The old man quickly noticed, you don't seem very angry. Duo calmly answered, I'm not naive enough to be angry about this. It would be stranger if there were no traitors or schemes. The old man stared at him and asked curiously, are you just going to ignore it? Duo replied, I know what I should do. Right now I'm only a squad captain. Spies aren't my concern. But the old man disagreed. If the ship sinks, everyone gets soaked, so it'll soon become your problem. I see it completely differently from No T. If the ship sinks, let it sink. It's not my ship. The scene shifts to the ancestral hall, where Arayo is kneeling before the ancestral tablet. She knelt there silently with a solemn expression. Then Arayo picked up the spear lying nearby. She then began practicing with complete focus. Every move Arayo unleashed carried tremendous destructive power. She was training with all her strength. Arayo handled the spear with remarkable skill. A moment later, she leaped into the air to unleash a powerful strike. At last, Arayo executed an incredibly deadly attack. Then she suddenly threw the spear onto the ground. Her entire body immediately collapsed to the floor. Lying on the ground, she could no longer hold back her tears. Looking ahead, Arayo murmured, Father, brother, the Iron Banner Alliance is in danger. Father, it's been 10 years since you passed away, and I've abandoned my own happiness to do everything I could for the Iron Banner Alliance you built. I can't carry everything anymore. The Alliance has become too heavy. We keep losing the war against the Nine Dragon sect. It feels as though the Iron Banner Alliance you founded belongs to someone else. Please grant me the strength to protect the Iron Banner Alliance. Give me the strength to protect my second brother. Every one of her actions was watched by Aijun. He silently watched Arayo's back as she walked away. The scene shifts to the city gate where Bangok and Manhwa returned with a huge pile of supplies. He couldn't help saying, this should be enough for 30 people, right? And Manhwa immediately agreed with Bangok. Then he froze in shock at the sight before him. What the hell? Bangok trembled as he pointed ahead where a severed head hung beside a notice. Ma Chung had been beheaded, and his head was displayed in public. Inside the room, Jongdu said to Inso, someone like Ma Chung being a spy for the Nine Dragon sect, Even a dog would laugh at that. After hearing him, Inso remained silent. That only made Jongdu angrier as he clenched his fists. Just then Inso looked up at him. Suddenly loud cheers erupted outside, drawing his attention. Inso and Jongdu followed the noise outside. Then he was horrified by the scene before him. Meanwhile, Noti and Bangak were roasting pork, while Banhyo was handing out porridge to everyone. In one corner, a group was happily playing soccer. Seeing this, Arayo was completely stunned by what was happening. Just then someone shouted loudly, startling her, "Sir, here I come." She then saw Duo leaping into the air, preparing to kick the ball. He unleashed an incredibly tricky kick. The ball's trajectory made it impossible for the opponent to stop. Everyone sprinted after Duo, trying to steal the ball. Every one of them burned with fighting spirit. Arayo gasped in disbelief. What are those injured warriors doing? The old man grilling meat sighed. It's good to be young. She asked worriedly, won't their injuries get worse? The old man calmly replied, of course they will, that's why they're young and foolish. Jongdu and Inso smiled at the sight. At the same time, someone shouted, stop Ho Chial. In an instant, he dribbled the ball to the goal. Ho Chial skillfully worked the ball past his opponent. Seeing this, Duo thought, I've seen those footwork techniques somewhere before. Just then, a large fat man roared, no one gets past me. He charged straight at Ho Chial to steal the ball. As he was attacked, Ho Chial quickly leaped off the ground. The fat man cried out in disbelief. At the same moment, Ho Chial planted both hands on the ground. He balanced upside down while trapping the ball with his feet. Ho Chial's ball control was so impressive that even the man was stunned. The fat man refused to give up and charged again. I won't let you pass. Suddenly, someone rushed in and knocked him flying. Caught off guard, the fat man fell backward. Hwa Ung stood firmly in place, blocking the approaching opponents. Meanwhile, Ho Chial kept charging through the crowd. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before someone. Duo calmly said, why don't you face me this time? The moment Ho Chial saw him, his anger flared again. He kicked the ball straight at Duo. Duo easily dodged the ball. Ho Chial still wouldn't stop and kicked at Duo. Effortlessly dodging every attack, Duo said, this is quite. Duo swiftly avoided another one of his attacks. He was forced back before finally regaining his footing. Staring at Ho Chial, Duo said, I remember those footwork techniques now. They're from the mystic sect, aren't they? Hearing that, Ho Chial charged in furiously. Shut your mouth. Seeing a fight break out, Banhyo excitedly rushed forward. He sprinted straight toward Ho Chial. Banhyo immediately unleashed a flurry of punches, but every strike he threw was swiftly dodged by Ho Chial. Seeing this, Arayo couldn't help saying, they're fighting, aren't you going to stop them? Banhyo exchanged blows for a while, then started panting. Look at that bastard's son, he's really good at running away. Duo, standing at a distance, asked curiously, we met before on the battlefield, didn't we? Hearing that, Ho Chial shouted, I am a fourth-generation disciple of the mystic sect, and I'll avenge my uncles and senior brothers. He calmly explained, a low-ranking soldier's duty is to fight. I only did what I had to do. Ho Chial lost his patience and charged, no need to explain. At the same time, Hwa Ung attacked from behind, but Duo easily dodged. He then introduced himself. I am Hwa Ung, a fifth-generation disciple of the mystic sect, and revenge is all I seek. Now Duo was surrounded by Ho Chial and Hwa Ung. He couldn't help sighing, I'm a mercenary. I avoid every fight unless it earns me more money. Hearing that, Ho Chial's face darkened. If you don't want to die in agony, then die by my hand. Duo helplessly rubbed his forehead. That's why I never wanted to be a better lackey than anyone else. Fighting too well only earned me unnecessary enemies. Suddenly Bangak rushed in. Don't leave me behind no matter what. Banhyo also stepped in to protect him. I won't let you lay a finger on our captain. The next second, Bangak charged straight at Hwa Ung. In an instant, Banhyo had already closed the distance. He slammed his head hard into Hwa Ung's chest. A moment later, Banhyo looked puzzled. What kind of strange material is this? Then Hwa Ung reached out and trapped Banhyo. As he was squeezed tightly, Banhyo trembled and said, wait, I actually like this fabric. But Banhyo's expression soon changed. I can't breathe. Hwa Ung knocked Banhyo flat onto the ground. Then he turned around after sensing something rushing toward him. It was Bangak launching a surprise attack. Bangak grabbed Hwa Ung's side, but Hwa Ung tensed his body. Bangak was thrown backward by his inner energy. He cursed, damn it, his skin's too tough, I can't find a weak point. Unwilling to accept it, Bangak charged again. Hwa Ung hardened his body and said, so that's why I don't want to fight you. Bangak kept scratching at him while Hwa Ung stood still. My captain's enemy is my enemy. Hwa Ung replied helplessly, I don't hit women. Any man who hits a woman is trash. Bangak grew even angrier and repeatedly kicked Hwa Ung's legs. Who are you calling a woman? I'm a man. Meanwhile, many people had gathered at the training grounds to spar. Watching Bangak's clumsy fight, Irayo sighed. Looks like he still has plenty of energy to cause trouble. She glanced at the two beside her and thought, an outsider would think we had just defeated the 9 Dragons cult. Seeing she still didn't understand and so said, you may lose a battle, but you must never lose your spirit. He explained, once your spirit dies, your fighting will fades and even a winnable battle becomes a loss. Iraio walked over to the old man and was surprised to see him grilling meat. Where did the money for such a feast come from? The old man replied, the captain of Joker Squad treated all of us. Hearing that, Iraio was stunned. Don't tell me he spent all of his reward money. She imagined Duo and Ho-Chial were locked in a fierce duel by now, and so noticed her walking toward the large gong and became curious. She picked up the mallet from the table, then struck it with a thunderous boom, as if she poured all her strength into that single strike. Everyone stopped at the sound of the gong as Iraio shouted, everyone stop. She declared, as the Iron Banner Alliance's enforcer, I cannot ignore this. Duo asked Bongok below, that woman is the enforcer? He whispered back, that's right, she's the Alliance leader's younger sister. She bluntly said, holding a feast without reporting it to your superiors, making no tea, who was eating, feel uneasy. A smug smile spread across her face. Iraio pointed the mallet downward and announced, I'll cover everything today, so eat and drink as much as you want. Everyone immediately burst into cheers. Ho-Chial instantly lost all interest in revenge. Seeing Banhio still lying there, Bongok walked over and said, please get up. He chuckled and patted his chest. She walked over to Inso and invited them both. You should come have a drink too. Everyone began lining up to receive meat. The three of them sat together, eating and chatting happily. Bongok handed out meat while enthusiastically shouting, eat as much as you like and come back for more if it's not enough. But he was startled when Hwa Ung cut in line and stood right before him. Unlike his fierce look earlier, he now spoke gently, give me some more meat. That moody attitude drove Bongok crazy. Bongok tossed him a pig's head and said, here, this looks just like you. Hwa Ung stared at the pig's head as if he'd found treasure. Ho-Chial was sitting alone, quietly drinking. Suddenly, Duo walked over and sat beside him, though Ho-Chial clearly disliked him. He poured wine and offered a drink to both Ho-Chial and Hwa Ung. Unable to hold back anymore, Ho-Chial gritted his teeth and said, you think I'd accept wine from my sworn enemy? Duo calmly replied, the hidden gate was incredibly powerful back then. I was hired to fight for Stone Pillar Village, but I was only desperately fighting to survive. He recalled facing an entire martial sect alone in that battle. Duo respectfully raised his cup. Would you feel better if I apologized for killing your fellow disciples? Unexpectedly, Ho-Chial refused such humiliation and slapped the cup away. He shouted, you think a few words can erase this hatred? Banhio couldn't sit still after seeing this, but no tea stopped him in time. Both Iraio and Inso also witnessed the scene. Feeling disrespected, Duo stood up. Fine, I'll give you a chance for revenge. He immediately pointed at Ho-Chial and Hwa Ung and ordered, from today onward, you two will join Joker Squad. Everyone present was stunned. Ho-Chial sprang to his feet and shouted, who gave you permission to change our unit? He calmly replied, I did. Since your captain is dead, assigning you to Joker Squad is perfectly reasonable, isn't it? And so simply stared without saying a word. Ho-Chial felt both powerless and resentful. I have the right to refuse. Duo sighed and asked, rights? Ridiculous, since when did a low-ranking soldier like you have any? He sat down confidently. If you truly hate serving under me, you can leave the Iron Banner Alliance. While sipping his wine, he added, but if word spreads that an Hidden Gate survivor fled in fear of the 9 Dragons sect, then the world will also learn how you survived the Hidden Gate massacre, right? Ho-Chial gritted his teeth. Bastard. He slammed his wine cup down. No one wins forever, and in the martial world even the strong can lose to the weak. And so was very satisfied with how he handled it. Duo poured another cup of wine. He placed it before Ho-Chial. Save that hatred for the future. Ho-Chial had no way out. He could only sit down and accept the drink. He emptied the cup in one gulp and set it down. Though still filled with hatred, he waited for the day he could stab Duo in the back. But Duo found that spirit rather heroic and interesting. Zhangdu was also deeply impressed by Duo's way of handling things. After finishing the meat, everyone moved on to lighter food. Outside in a corner, Iraio asked Inso to meet privately. I want to discuss the Black Banner Division. She said the Black Banner Division was now in complete chaos and could no longer maintain order, so they should recruit as many people as possible, but Inso thought otherwise and believed its current state was enough. That answer surprised Iraio. What? He simply replied, one capable person is worth more than 100 useless ones. She then noticed Duo at the next table. Everyone admired Duo's ability and kept pouring him drinks. By the time they finished eating, it was late at night and everyone lay drunk on the ground. Even Hochial finally lost the drinking contest. Banhyo sneered, "Are you kidding? You collapsed after just a few cups." No sooner had he said that than he felt nauseous. He immediately threw up, leaving only Duo still awake. He sat there drinking alone. Suddenly Arayo appeared. She asked, "Would you like to have a drink with me?" Duo did not answer. He simply stared at Arayo as she drank heavily. She then asked, "I heard you spend all your reward money on drinks and snacks." Arayo placed a pouch on the table. Duo curiously asked, "What's this?" She replied, "It's my share of the drinks I had." Unexpectedly, Duo refused it. "I don't need it." She looked at the people behind him and smiled. "You've been in the Iron Banner Alliance for less than a week, yet you've already won everyone's trust." But Duo replied humbly, "I wasn't trying to befriend anyone. Getting close to others is unnecessary, because it only hurts more when someone dies." Arayo grew fond of Duo and praised him. "You have the qualities of a commander, and if you want, I can recommend you for Inso's position." His lack of ambition pleased her greatly. "Aren't you interested in a high position or making your name known in the martial world?" Duo shook his head. "Not at all." Arayo curiously asked why. He looked at her with sharp eyes and said, "The greater the fame, the stronger the enemies." Arayo smiled brightly. "That's true, if you don't care about money or fame. Then are you interested in women?" She seemed to have fallen for Duo. Not understanding her meaning, he honestly replied, "Just like anyone else." Arayo teased him a little. What woman would want a man with neither money nor fame? But his answer could melt anyone's heart. Isn't it enough just to have someone to share a drink with? Arayo found herself liking Duo even more. The two of them drank together all night. Bongok and Hwa couldn't stand each other, yet now they were sleeping side by side. The entire fortress fell silent. Suddenly, the sound of galloping hooves echoed. A warhorse raced forward at full speed. Meanwhile, at the Nine Dragons cult headquarters in the mountains, a rider arrived before the fortress gate. The two guards stopped him and demanded, "Who goes there?" The soldier took out a decree, an urgent decree from the cult leader. Before anyone noticed, Hyang Weal stepped forward from behind. A decree from the cult leader, delivered by the three-wheel envoy. He sternly ordered, "Wake everyone immediately and summon everyone from enforcement commander rank and above." The guards instantly obeyed. "Yes, sir." Inside a house, Hyang Weal and the people knelt together, praying for their ancestors' protection. He sincerely offered the decree to those above, then respectfully lowered it. Only then did he open the decree. He finished reading it without the slightest reaction. The people around him grew anxious. The decree stated that no matter the cost, the one who assassinated enforcement envoy Kang Su Shim must be eliminated. After hearing it, everyone found it rather strange. That's all. They pointed out the odd part. We know the cult leader favored Kang Su Shim, but would he dispatch the three-wheel envoy over just this? Even Hyang Weal was troubled, unable to grasp the decree's deeper meaning. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. That only proves how serious this matter is. The messenger who had delivered the decree unexpectedly walked inside. One official immediately scolded him. "Insolence, you're standing before the three-wheel envoy." Hyang Weal signaled him to be silent. At that moment, the man removed his mask. Instantly, Hyang Weal was stunned. Everyone shouted, "Young cult leader." They all immediately knelt. "We, your subordinates, pay our respects to the young cult leader." Jingjing said sternly, "I came personally this time because there are still matters concerning the decree that must be handled." The next morning at the camp, everyone woke to begin a new day. But early that morning, loud arguing was already coming from the commander's camp. "Do you even understand military strategy?" At the Iron Flag Alliance, Blue Flag branch leader Yang Jiokcho angrily shouted, "Don't you realize it takes at least 5 times the enemy's strength to break a force entrenched in the mountains? So you're saying we should just sit here until the enemy comes out on their own?" The two disagreed and argued as Sanghak stated, "Winter is coming, they can't hide in the mountains forever." He pointed at the map and said, "We're camped at the mountain's base with full supplies from headquarters, but the enemy has none. We just wait until they can't endure it anymore and come out, then we'll strike and win without risking our lives." But Sanghak let his pride get in the way. Brilliant strategy. Why didn't Chief Yang join the army instead of entering the martial world? Nobody here fights like that. Jiokcho only wanted the best solution. Whether in war or the martial world, the road to victory is the same, but Sanghak refused to listen. "So your solution is just waiting." Frustrated, Jiokcho said, "Is there any better way?" Then Chief sang, "Why don't you try?" Sanghak wanted command. "That's exactly what I intend to do." Unable to argue further, he stormed out. "From today on, our Yellow Flag Division will operate independently. Night quietly fell over the camp. Suddenly, everyone saw lights descending from the sky. Flaming arrows plunged straight into the tents. A soldier immediately shouted, "Enemy attack." The next instant, hundreds of flaming arrows rained down as Sang-hak rushed out and shouted, "Those cowardly rats hiding in the mountains dare ambush us now. I said we should have attacked first." He ordered his soldiers, "The enemy is where the flames are rising." Even so, no one could deny Sang-hak's incredible agility. He leaped into the air, then sprinted forward at full speed, using his martial arts. The enemies froze as Sang-hak suddenly charged at them. In an instant, dozens of hands seemed to appear. Each enemy was slapped once across the face, so fast they couldn't even see his hands. Sang-hak overwhelmed every enemy with his martial arts. The enemies had no choice but to retreat. "Fall back, everyone retreat." His hands seemed to ignite with flames by themselves. Clenching his fist, Sang-hak roared, "You filthy rats, do you think we'll let you escape?" Still unwilling to let them go, he chased after them. Countless flaming arrows rained down, forcing Jiok-cho to take shelter behind a rock. "Don't panic, find cover and hide." Yet that coward relied only on his soldiers. How could the enemy ambush us like this? Where are all the guards? Though he had enough troops and weapons, he didn't order an advance but instead commanded, "Stay calm and form a defensive line. It's hard to shoot accurately in the forest. Don't waste arrows, just hold the line." More and more flaming arrows fell, setting the entire camp ablaze. While observing, Jiok-cho spotted a figure. Before they could repel them, enemy forces had already surged in. He grabbed his weapon, "You bastards." Now he had no choice but to face the enemy head-on. Hyung Weol mockingly called out, "The famous Blue Flag Division chief of the Iron Banner Alliance is hiding behind a rock now. Aren't you ashamed?" The enemy commander was the third wheel envoy of the Nine Dragons sect, Ghost Tiger Claw. Jiok-cho refused to yield. A commander must know when to advance and when to retreat. "If I'm struck by a stray arrow, my entire army could be wiped out. And besides, I'd never have the chance to behold the noble face of the Nine Dragons sect's third wheel envoy, would I?" The elder smiled faintly and said, "What good is meeting someone as insignificant as me? Division chief, you'd be better off taking that arrow instead." Everyone drew their swords and prepared for battle. Jiok-cho braced himself and said, "In my humble opinion, the envoy's face is worth more than unrivaled beauty. And if you haven't even touched the soul, what will you say when you face the king of the underworld?" Suddenly, a massive explosion of smoke erupted behind him. The sight shocked him to the core. Hyung Weol smiled coldly and said, "It seems the Yellow Banner Alliance leader has met an unfortunate end." Hyung Weol raised his claws. "Now I'll send you to speak with the king of the underworld." He charged at Jiok-cho like lightning. He slashed with his claws, but Jiok-cho blocked with his rope. The enemy forces immediately joined the battle. He thought, has the Yellow Banner Division already fallen? If so, Hyung Weol was right. We can't expect reinforcements from the Yellow Banner Division and must even guard against attacks from that direction. In this situation, all we can do is hold our ground. Jiok-cho was no ordinary fighter and kept dodging Hyung Weol's attacks, forcing Hyung Weol to chase him nonstop. Suddenly, Hyung Weol leaped into the air. He lunged at Jiok-cho like prey, but Jiok-cho instantly hurled his rope. "I've been waiting for this moment." The rope with its hooked arrow shot straight toward him. Hyung Weol swiftly raised his claws. It knocked the rope flying back. He tried to block Jiok-cho's vision with his cloak. Then he slashed, but Jiok-cho still dodged. Neither had suffered any real damage yet. However, Jiok-cho's robe had been torn across the chest. Seeing soldiers behind him, Hyung Weol stopped. He sneered, "The Eight Gates Golden Lock Formation. Don't tell me none of the Iron Banner Alliance division leaders are true martial masters. Only division leader and has the bearing of a real expert, while the rest are nothing but trash." Jiok-cho clutched his chest and endured. The camp had already been swallowed by flames. After a long battle, Yellow Banner Division leader Sang-hak disappeared during the fight. He vanished before the battle had fully ended. Soon after, a heaven-shaking explosion erupted, and the entire event was reported. The Yellow Banner Division's main force searched for their leader but fell into an ambush and was nearly annihilated. The Blue Banner and Yellow Banner Divisions retreated 30 miles and set up camp at the entrance to Noho Mountain. After constant attacks, the entire army was utterly exhausted and could barely keep fighting. Hearing this, Seomun-byok remained silent. He sat there deeply lost in thought. Suddenly, Seomun-byok turned to one side, frightening everyone nearby. Then he slowly looked the other way, making everyone even more uneasy. At that moment, Jeongchun stood up, Chief Division Leader. Clenching his fist, Jeongchun said, "Please allow our Red Banner Division to march, and in 3 days we'll wipe out the Nine Dragons sect and return." As soon as he finished speaking, the entire hall fell silent. Xiamen Biok said nothing and simply stared at Jiang Qin. Then he suddenly ground his teeth in anger. His attitude from Xiamen Biok completely intimidated him. Seeing this scene, Arayo couldn't help letting out a quiet sigh. Then he warned, since you've stepped forward so boldly, I assume you've already thought everything through, branch leader. Jiang Qin forced an awkward smile, not knowing how to answer. Xiamen Biok's face darkened. You stepped forward without a plan. Do you think branch leader Yang is less intelligent than you? Do you think he's less courageous than branch leader Gi? Tell me, what makes your red flag branch better than theirs? He was so frightened that he couldn't say a word. Meanwhile, the old man kept questioning him. Why do you think the black flag, yellow flag, and blue flag kept failing? Realizing things had gone badly, Jiangchen quickly clasped his hands and apologized. Only then did Xiamen Biok calm down. What's the point of apologizing now? Then he suddenly turned to look at Pyong beside him. Seeing that, Pyong smiled and said, allow me to say a few words. The Nine Dragons cult currently has only 2 envoys and about 300 followers at Noho Mountain. The blue flag and yellow flag each have about 200 men, making 400 in total, so we originally had the numerical advantage. The fact that we still couldn't win proves that although terrain mattered, the main issue was the chain of command. The black flag's defeat was caused by leaked intelligence beforehand, so there's no point discussing it. But the blue flag and yellow flag failed mainly because of the conflict between their branch leaders. Based on the current reports, the missing yellow flag branch leader seems partly responsible, but it's hard to judge from only one branch leader's testimony. I believe the remaining forces of both branches at Noho Mountain are enough to face the enemy. The problem is that the remaining yellow flag troops will likely resist being placed under the blue flag branch leader's command. However, letting the yellow flag command independently would likely repeat the same disaster. Hearing this, Xiamen Biok asked, who can unite the yellow flag while coordinating with the blue flag in battle? Pyong continued, according to the original plan, the iron flag and red flag shouldn't move yet. Until the Nine Dragons cult commits all its forces, keeping them in reserve is the priority. Besides, we cannot afford another defeat, as another loss would deal a fatal blow to the army's morale. The one to shoulder this responsibility should be. At that moment, Arayo stood up and said, please entrust this important mission to me. The old man smiled. I'm afraid the blue flag branch leader would find that difficult. But Arayo disagreed. What's so difficult about it, Pyong? Seeing her reaction, Pyong chose not to say anything more. Xiamen Biok then said seriously, I'm afraid the blue flag branch leader cannot freely command the enforcement hall as others can. How could the 2 branch leaders casually order around the daughter of the former alliance leader and the younger sister of the current leader? Arayo was about to argue, but he stopped her. In my opinion, branch leader N is the better choice. The black flag now has only about 30 men left, so they might as well merge into the yellow flag. She couldn't accept such a ridiculous argument. Branch leader N hasn't even recovered from his injuries. Besides, branch leader Yang of the blue flag ranks below branch leader N, yet you're asking him to serve under Yang. Just then Inso suddenly stood up. Then he said firmly, the black flag will go. In an instant, the entire hall fell silent. Xiamen Biok also stood up and ordered everyone to depart that very night. Then Inso, Arayo, and Zhangdu left the meeting room. She silently followed behind the 2 men. Ahead of them, everyone was busy with various tasks. No T was bandaging everyone's wounds. Banhayo sat off to the side, shaving his head. Bongok and Hwa Ung were chatting cheerfully. Suddenly someone shouted, Division Chief has arrived, all troops assemble. Everyone immediately gathered as ordered. They quickly formed neat straight ranks. Arayo looked quite satisfied by the sight. Then she noticed Duo nearby in surprise. He was slowly walking toward Arayo. At that moment, Duo smiled gently at her. Seeing him, Arayo felt he looked much better than before. Zhangdu then ordered, everyone pack your gear. Tonight, our Black Banner Division marches to Noho Mountain. Standing behind the crowd, he heard the announcement. Duo silently pondered without saying a word. And so, Arayo and Zhangdu stood there solemnly after addressing everyone. Banhayo couldn't help asking, Noho Mountain, are we going back there and tonight? He answered seriously, you heard correctly. The next moment everyone fell silent. Then she introduced herself, I am Arayo, the Grand Division's enforcer. I know it's unreasonable to deploy without rest or reinforcements. Even so, I hope you'll see this mission as a chance to avenge our past losses and fight your best. Zhangdu followed Arayo's speech by loudly ordering everyone to move out. Just then she softly called Duo's name. Arayo asked for his opinion. What do you think about this deployment? Duo turned to her and calmly replied, I follow orders. As he fell silent, Arayo remarked, you don't sound very pleased. He firmly denied it. I have no complaints, it's just. Duo then said meaningfully, if we had more time. more of our comrades would survive. After hearing Duo's words, she fell silent. Time passed, and at Red Gold Canyon, a horse was now galloping swiftly ahead. Su Shim was about to mount his horse when he suddenly looked toward one direction. He saw Jingjing hurrying toward him from afar. Startled, Su Shim exclaimed, "Young cult leader," as she eagerly ran toward him. Jingjing couldn't help asking, "You arrived earlier than expected," and Su Shim explained, "I rushed here without resting because I wanted to see you, young cult leader." Jingjing's face flushed slightly. "I missed you too, Envoy Kang." The next moment, she kissed Su Shim. After a long kiss, they reluctantly parted, and he handed Jingjing a modest gift. "I bought this while thinking of you, young cult leader." She admired the gift in her hand. "It's beautiful." Then Jingjing suddenly remembered something. "I have a gift for Envoy Kang too." She led Su Shim into a room filled with weapons. He couldn't help crying out in surprise when he saw one of them. Jingjing proudly said, "I made it myself while thinking of Envoy Kang." Su Shim immediately picked up the chain. She quickly asked, "Do you like it?" Su Shim replied, "With this silver pendant the young cult leader made for me, I'll make my name known throughout the martial world." Jingjing beamed at his reaction. "I'm so happy." She rushed forward and hugged Su Shim tightly. The necklace's sharp tip would surely make an excellent weapon. But that was only the past, for now the weapon remained while its owner had died at Duo's hands. Just then, a subordinate rushed in to report. He reported, "Just as expected, we've received word that the Black Banner Division has joined them." Hyang, we all judged from the report, it seems the young cult leader's prediction was correct, and the Black Banner Division must contain the one who killed our ninth brother. After hearing that, Jingjing bluntly asked, "Duo, he used a strange weapon and spared only the captain." Hyang Weol clenched his fist and growled, "Unbelievable. I never imagined Envoy Kang would lose to an unknown soldier. If the prisoner's testimonies are trustworthy." She silently looked at Sang-hak, who was tied up nearby. Then Jingjing took out one of her hidden weapons. Without hesitation, she drove it hard into his chest. Sang-hak screamed in agony. Jingjing coldly said, "Prepare an ambush. It will be a small greeting for our distant guest. And don't forget, capture Duo alive at any cost. I want to see him beg for death." Hearing Sang-hak's screams, Hyang Weol could only shake his head helplessly. The scene shifted to the Iron Banner Alliance base at the entrance of Noho Mountain. Inside a tent, someone said, "You all came here despite your poor condition. You've worked hard." Jiok Cho continued, "It couldn't have been easy returning to the place where we suffered such a crushing defeat." Jongdu gritted his teeth in anger after hearing that, while Inso remained silent. Seeing their reactions, he said nothing more. Then Inso seriously asked, "What is my assignment?" Jiok Cho immediately told Inso to find them. "Locate the enemy's hiding place, then I'll lead the Blue Banner Division to wipe them out." After hearing Jiok Cho's words, Inso silently stood up. Jiok Cho watched blankly as Jongdu and Inso walked away. Outside, he said irritably, "So you're planning to claim all the credit after we found the enemy's hiding place?" Everyone then noticed the two of them had returned. They immediately clasped their hands and saluted them. Duo silently stared at Jongdu and Inso. He still said nothing after their discussion with Jiok Cho. After a while, Inso finally spoke. "The enemy is over there, so I should point them out to you." After informing Duo, he turned and left. Jongdu walked over and patted his shoulder. "This is a dangerous mission, but what choice do we have? You're the only one I can trust. If you need anything, just ask, and I'll prepare it for you." Sitting there, Duo asked, "What I need?" Everyone immediately looked at him with concern. All of them waited for Duo's answer. Then he turned and said, "A replacement life." The scene shifted to a beautiful landscape. The scenery was breathtaking, and no one would have guessed this was the enemy's hideout. At that moment, someone quietly moved forward. It turned out to be Duo and his companions carrying out the raid. Bongok couldn't help asking, "Is that really true?" Banhyo couldn't understand what he meant. Bongok explained from behind that they needed a replacement life for this mission, calmly pointing out that they were charging into Noho Mountain with their current numbers while the enemy might already be waiting in ambush. Hearing that, his face instantly turned pale. They moved forward and found countless arrows stuck in the ground. Duo walked over, picked up a branch, and examined it. Judging by the traces left by the Four Seasons Heavenly Blade leader, this should be where the Yellow Flag branch leader fought his last battle. Hearing that, the old man asked in surprise, "So you know the Four Seasons Heavenly Blade leader?" Duo calmly replied, "How could I not? They gave him such an exaggerated name that it's easy to remember." The old man was astonished again. "Just as you said, the Yellow Flag members searched thoroughly, but the trail ended here." Duo continued examining the scene. There were footprints everywhere. The old man inspected it with him and commented, "It seems they conducted a large-scale search, probably fearing an ambush." Banhyo suddenly found it strange. How could they expect to find any tracks after searching like that? Duo sighed softly, charging straight into an obvious ambush. Judging by the depth of the footprints and their stride, they rushed in like wild boars. The old man seemed to realize something. the yellow flag branch leader has always been famous for his reckless bravery. Duo immediately turned to Bangok. See, this is the downside of being famous. The enemy not only understood the yellow flag branch leader's abilities but also knew his personality, so they set this trap. The old man gasped in disbelief. Duo continued analyzing. That's right, the enemy has an extremely capable strategist. Anyway, in this condition, I'm afraid we won't find any useful traces. Bangok curiously asked, then what should we do? Based on the current situation, he replied, we'll have to rely on luck and see whether we find the enemy first or they find us. Bangok seemed to understand. So besides a replacement life, we also need luck. Duo then turned to everyone and instructed, those who aren't useful for this mission should return to the main camp. He quickly called out 3 members of the squad by name. He didn't stop there and also mentioned Hwa Ung. Duo pointed out the key issue. This mission requires the agility of a cat more than brute strength. He turned to seek Ho Chial's help, but Ho Chial could only shake his head helplessly. In the end, Hwa Ung returned to the main camp with the other 3. No T understood the situation and thought, that's not the only reason. If we meet the enemy, you'll be the first to die. Duo suddenly asked him, old man, can we still track them here? No T replied. The Yellow Flag Division chief has been missing for 3 days, so most traces are probably gone. But the sun is still high, so there's still a chance. Based on that, Duo urged him to lead the way. Then the group quickly set off. The scene shifts to a barren, scorching cliff. At the foot of the mountain, a force was on the move. Just then someone complained, can't we ride our horses? The 9 Dragon Sex Iron Cavalry is leading horses like servants. Ho Jiok, deputy commander of the 9th Left Tiger Division, reminded them, I've already said this place is filled with golden dust and horse hooves would echo through the canyon. Has the young cult leader's strategy ever failed? This surprise attack must succeed. After losing the envoy right before our eyes, how could we face the cult leader without a great achievement? Do you know the commander hasn't slept peacefully since then? Mungi lost his patience and shouted. He angrily roared, the one most devastated by the envoy's death is none other than the young cult leader. Seeing things turn bad, Ho Jiok quickly said, my apologies. Mungi growled angrily, we must succeed in this operation. For the young cult leader, everyone shouted in unison. Still furious, he added, we must capture Duo alive and bring him before the young cult leader. The scene shifts to a beautiful landscape. Duo's group was hiding behind a bush. Before long, they reached a stream. Seeing it Banhyo side, a stream, the trail we found ends here. Suddenly, No T noticed something. Wait, look here. Bangok quickly spotted a dried branch, and No T immediately recognized that human traces differ from those of wild animals. The branch wasn't broken, but had been bent almost to the point of snapping and left there. Duo curiously asked No T, what can we learn from that? After thinking for a moment, he said, it seems several enemies gathered here before the ambush. Banhyo immediately scoffed. There goes the old man talking nonsense again. How can you know all that from a single footprint? No T calmly pointed ahead. Don't you see those triangular patches of dirt? Seeing Banhyo still confused, he continued. Those are boot marks. When wet soil sticks in a boot's grooves and the wearer steps on a rock, the dirt falls off. They wouldn't leave marks like that during the day, but they would at night. Imagine a man in leather boots standing on this rock while his subordinates stood on those others. What do you think? Bangok considered it and guessed, you mean at least one unit with its commander in the center? He nodded. That's one way to see it. Suddenly Banhyo noticed something else and shouted, I found more footprints down here. What's this? No T quickly walked over and explained, these footprints head back the other way. Looks like someone just like you urgently needed to relieve himself. Bangok then curiously asked Duo, what should we do now? He calmly replied, we've reached a place previous scout teams never managed to reach. The fact that we've repeatedly found evidence that earlier scout teams were captured or killed on the way here means. Before Duo could finish, Bangok interrupted, does that mean we've been lucky? He nodded. That's right, at least until now. Within half a day's travel from here, there must be an enemy base or ambush site. From this point on, we're entering enemy territory. We've been lucky so far, but from here onward, we won't get a second chance, so stay especially alert. Bangok took every word to heart. Suddenly Banhyo walked over and told him, you should have gone back with Hwa Ung. Bangok roared in anger after being mocked, making Banhyo tease him, cute little guy. Do you have an older sister? Caught off guard by Banhyo's hug and question, he quickly denied having one. After that, everyone resumed their journey. Ho Chial walked at the rear, remaining silent the whole time. His eyes were now so cold that anyone who met them would shiver. The group continued marching beneath the cliffs. Before long, they reached a canyon. Duo stood atop the ridge, looking into the distance. He couldn't help muttering, something feels strange. The old man pointed out, when camping in a place with poor visibility like this, guards should naturally be posted around the area. Losing patience, Duo slid down the slope. We'll know once we get there. Below was the site where a force had been camped. He calmly walked toward it without the slightest fear. Bongok and Hochial hid behind a tree, observing the area. Banhyo and the old man watched cautiously from another corner. Duo also hid behind a large tree to scout the area. After looking around, he said, "There's no one here, but there are signs people were here." Following Duo's words, everyone spread out to investigate. Bongok couldn't help asking the old man, "Are you reading footprints?" He immediately confirmed it, and Bongok eagerly asked, "Can you teach me?" The old man generously agreed. First, you must tell fresh tracks from old ones, and on wet ground fresh prints stay clear and moist. On dry ground like this, sand and dust gather over time, and if the edges are dry and crumbling, they're at least 2 hours old. Banhyo complained, "My head hurts, skip the lecture and get to the point." The old man slowly stood up. There are 3 things we can conclude. First, judging by the footprints, about 15 or 16 people were here. Second, they left 1 or 2 hours ago, and they were all running, which means they were in a hurry. Third, they'll come back here. Bongok grew excited. "Amazing, how did you figure all that out?" The old man pointed at the ground. Their long strides and deep toe prints show they were running. Deep footprints with strap marks would mean they carried heavy loads, but there are no such marks here. That means they left their belongings behind, so they'll definitely return. Simple enough, right? Duo interrupted. "About 15 men disappeared in a hurry somewhere nearby, but they haven't completely left this place." "What does that mean?" The old man stroked his beard. "There are several possibilities, but the most reasonable one right now is an ambush." Hearing that, Hochial tensed up. Again, worry also appeared on Bongok's face. "Shouldn't we warn our allies?" Duo shook his head. "It's too late. Let's just hope the division leader isn't a fool who thinks no ambush could happen on the very first day." The old man glanced at him. The enemy understands military tactics, so they seem to have an excellent strategist. Duo's face turned serious. What's more troubling is that this person holds enough authority to carry out those plans. Bongok looked confused. "What do you mean?" The old man explained, "Even the greatest strategist is useless if the decision-maker refuses to follow the plan." Duo continued, "There can be plenty of opposition to complex and risky operations. The fact they still carried it out means they either had absolute authority or complete trust in their strategist." Hochial couldn't help asking, "Then what should we do?" Duo glanced toward the camp. "It's too late to return and stop the ambush anyway. Should we use this chance to attack the enemy's main camp instead?" The scene shifted back to their camp. Jongdu stood silently before the soup pot, deep in thought. The nearest inn is half a day's journey away, so we'll have to endure this misery a little longer. And so remained silent without replying. Another man cut in, "At least it's better than the 9 Dragons cult being trapped in the mountains. They probably don't even dare light a fire for fear of exposing their hiding place." Jongdu added, "Instead, we have to accept the risk of being ambushed." Just then Inso suddenly stood up. "Are the preparations complete?" Seeing the other man confused, Jongdu explained, "He's asking how far the anti-ambush preparations have progressed." The man hesitated before answering. "We've deployed our defenses as usual, but..." Before he could finish, and so interrupted, "Prepare for battle." Jongdu explained more clearly. "He's saying we'll move out as soon as the scouts return." The other man frowned. "I've sent many scouts before and none succeeded. Can you guarantee this time will be different?" In response, Enso merely gave him an extremely fierce glare. Jongdu walked over, patted his shoulder and warned, "Haven't you heard what happened to those who made branch leader and talked too much?" The man stubbornly replied, "Isn't it because you're giving orders without understanding the situation here? We've been trapped in this damned valley for a month, everyone's exhausted, and without proper rest we can't fight." Jongdu's face darkened. "Once you're dead, you won't be able to fight no matter how much you want to." The man laughed confidently. "Security has been greatly strengthened since then, and the enemy isn't foolish enough to launch another ambush." Jongdu warned him again. "Anyway, you'd better obey branch leader An's orders because he's extremely strict about what he says. Besides, he draws his sword faster than he speaks." Hearing that, the man could only curse, "Damn it." Before long, dusk began to fall. The ambush force was now hidden inside the forest. They silently watched and waited for the right moment. Hyangweol suddenly raised his hand. A war horn sounded immediately afterward. The archers instantly unleashed a rain of arrows. Their target was none other than the group below. And so said nothing, and immediately raised his sword to block them. Time passed and night quickly fell. From above, Duo's group watched the camp below. He suddenly found it strange. Is this really the place? From behind, No T said they were right. The best place to hide is under the lamp. and Duo marveled that they had kept their base in such an exposed earthen fortress. Duo pointed out that since they had gone out to ambush, only the wounded and a handful of guards should be left. Then should we attack their main camp? Manhwa couldn't help asking, now that we've found the enemy, shouldn't we return and report instead of taking such a risk? We're a reconnaissance team, not a suicide squad. He helplessly rubbed his forehead and said, you're right, but Duo then glanced down unconsciously, thinking humans were truly strange. Seeing the enemy's main camp empty made it hard to resist charging in. Just then Ho Chial suddenly said, I don't care, you take command. Hearing that, Duo ordered, then all of you stay here, and Ban Hyo quickly called out, sensing something was wrong. But Duo remained determined and headed straight into the enemy camp. He couldn't believe Bongok was running after him. He simply followed Duo without the slightest fear. Inside the deserted camp, not a single person was in sight. The scene shifted to a dark, gloomy prison cell. Jingjing picked up a sharp knife and said, I've loved machines since I was little. Whenever I found an interesting toy, I'd beg my father to buy it no matter how expensive it was. Once I got it, I'd tear it apart to see how it worked. My father always scolded me for ruining my toys, but Envoy Kang always brought me new ones. Who would have thought Envoy Kang would lose to a nameless low-ranking warrior? Duo, that worthless nobody, has such a ridiculous name. Meanwhile, Duo was gripping a guard by the throat. He quickly took complete control of the man. Moments later, the guard stopped breathing. Duo immediately dragged the body into a hidden corner. Then he and Bongok quickly rushed inside. Just then, Duo spotted a hidden chamber ahead. He immediately rushed downstairs to inspect it. Next, Duo sensed something was off, so he raised a hand to signal Bongok behind him. Duo cautiously scanned his surroundings. He instantly spotted a masked man rushing at him from nowhere. Duo charged forward and struck first. He unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks. Then two masked men with weapons rushed out to kill Duo. He stood his ground, ready to face them. Duo suddenly ducked to evade both of their attacks. Then he spun forward and counterattacked the two masked men. In an instant, Duo sliced off both of their legs. He effortlessly cut down the two masked men with his sword. Duo showed them no mercy with his attacks. He completely controlled the battle. Bongok was stunned to see all three of them fall in an instant. Duo calmly sheathed his sword and said, one of them must have the key. He held his nose against the blood stench and searched their bodies for the key. Meanwhile, Jingjing held a knife towards Sang Hak. It's not my first time dissecting a human, but until I catch Duo, you'll be my toy. Just then, someone kicked the door wide open. She snapped in anger, didn't I say no one was allowed in? Then Jingjing froze when she saw it was Duo. His arrival was completely unexpected. Meanwhile, Duo remained perfectly calm. Outside, a grove was engulfed in blazing flames. A fierce battle was raging there as well. Seeing this, Hyungweol thought, even with a surprise attack, their resistance is stronger than I expected. And so was fighting fiercely. He unleashed an attack with overwhelming power. And so single strike blasted everyone nearby away. Hyungweol recognized him, and so, the Butcher of Humanity. Hyungweol stroked the fox playing with wandering spirits. He felt excited. It's been a long time since I met a true martial artist. Hyungweol charged forward. You are worthy to be my opponent. In an instant, he and So closed the distance between them. Duo fearlessly pushed the door open. He looked around, assessing everything inside. Sang Hak, tied up in a corner, caught Duo's attention. Jingjing was stunned by his sudden appearance. Bongok couldn't help letting out a quiet gasp. As Duo walked over, he said, judging by your build, you must be the Yellow Banner leader. She was still staring at him in shock. He looked at Jingjing, wondering how such a beautiful young woman had ended up here. After checking Sang Hak, he ordered, he's still breathing, go get the old physician, and Bongok immediately answered, yes. Then Bongok quickly rushed out of the room. Meanwhile, Duo helped lay Sang Hak on the bed. Duo couldn't help noticing how messy the place was. Just then, Jingjing tried to sneak up and assassinate him. But Duo had already seen through her intent and said, don't do anything reckless. Caught red-handed, Jingjing silently lowered her knife. Yet her eyes widened in panic. She noticed a long saber about 2 meters long and as wide as a palm. Only then did she realize the man before her was Duo. He kept treating Sang Hak's wounds without paying her any attention. She burned with rage and shouted, do you know Kang Su Shim? Hearing that, Duo quietly repeated the man's name. Then he replied, you mean the guy riding a white horse with a silver chain? With a nickname like White Warhorse with Silver Chain, I'd remember him even if I didn't want to. He showed off like a fool, and in the end he died. Unable to hold back, Jingjing swung her knife at Duo, but he easily dodged all her attacks. Jingjing failed to strike him and was subdued by Duo. He effortlessly forced her to drop the knife. Duo showed no mercy and slapped Jingjing hard across the face. She was completely stunned that he had struck her. Meanwhile, Bongok quickly brought the old physician here. Without delay, he checked Sang Hak's pulse, then opened his bag and took out emergency medical tools. He firmly inserted several needles into Sang Hak's body. Only then did Bangok notice Jingjing trembling on her knees. She could no longer hold back and burst into tears. Seeing Jingjing like that, he didn't know what to do. The old physician wiped his sweat and said, "I've stopped the bleeding for now so he can breathe. If he isn't treated properly at once, he'll be crippled." Then Duo carried him on his back and said, "We're heading back to the camp." Seeing that, Banguk couldn't help calling out to him. Looking at Jingjing behind them, he asked, "What are you going to do with that girl?" As he walked, Duo calmly replied, "Do whatever you want." Then he noticed she had suddenly turned to look this way. Jingjing sobbed and asked, "The one who just left was Duo, wasn't it?" Banguk gave a slight nod, confirming her guess. The scene shifted outside the deserted camp. Banhyo couldn't help cursing, "Where did he go?" The next second he was startled as Duo appeared. Banhyo couldn't help asking, "Where's Banguk?" When he saw Banguk run out, he shouted in frustration. Duo turned to them and ordered, "Withdraw immediately." Meanwhile, Jingjing stood inside in a daze. She trembled with rage. "Great Duo, I swear." Jingjing screamed inside the secret chamber, "I'll tear you apart." After the night passed, the sun rose above the mountains. Countless corpses lay along the road after the great battle. Countless corpses lay along the road after the great battle. He stood there panting, staring at Hyung Weol. He stood there panting, staring at Hyung Weol. "I was so focused on fighting and that I lost track of time. I was so focused on fighting and that I lost track of time. I was foolish to ignore the battlefield because of our duel." Then he admitted frankly, "I've lost this battle. Let's postpone our decisive clash." The scene shifts to a breathtaking mountainside. At the camp where Duo's group was stationed, many people had died in the great battle. Some were badly wounded, while others never returned. Hwa was digging a deep pit. Just then Ho Chial arrived and said he was safe. He was shocked to see Ho Chial return unharmed. He hurried over and asked, "Hwa, are you hurt?" "I was stabbed a few times, but nothing serious." Ho Chial sighed in relief. "I heard the main camp was ambushed, so I'm glad you're safe." Hwa gratefully replied, "Thanks to the branch leader, I survived." Meanwhile, Enso was sitting in his private room. His wounds were being bandaged. Just then, Duo's group entered the tent. The physician immediately carried his tools to Sang-hak. He and the old woman gave him first aid. He then told Enso that he had rescued him from the earthen fortress. He couldn't help asking when they should attack. Duo walked out and said they should attack now. Enso silently watched him leave. Outside, everyone was still busy with their own tasks. Then a voice came from inside the tent. Jiok Cho felt like it was some kind of joke. He pointed out that attacking now was reckless even if they knew the enemy's base. Jong Du quickly replied, "Branch leader Yang, weren't we supposed to move after finding their base?" He answered at once, "That was before we were ambushed." A second later, a sword pointed straight at Jiok Cho. Jong Du coldly warned, "Branch leader and hates empty words." He silently stared at the sword before him. Then Duo led everyone in one direction. Banhyo asked in disbelief, "What the hell? We're going back the same way after marching all night." The old woman reminded him, "Those who fought all night and were badly wounded have it worse than us, so stop complaining." The man running ahead said they had treated the wounded after the battle, but they would return to the main camp for recovery. The best strategy is to ambush them before they recover and rest. Meanwhile, Hyung Weol led a group standing at the city gate. He ordered the wounded to receive treatment and everyone else to rest for the next campaign. The next second, a soldier rushed in to report that an intruder had appeared. Hyung Weol could hardly believe the report. He suddenly realized he had overlooked the prison. Then Hyung Weol hurried toward it. He dashed straight into the dark prison. As soon as Hyung Weol arrived, he saw bodies on the floor. He couldn't help cursing. Then Hyung Weol suddenly leaped forward. Next he spotted Jingjing curled up in a corner. Only then did Hyung Weol sigh in relief. "Young cult leader." She growled in fury, "That bastard." Jingjing explained that he had been here. She slowly stood and said he was the one who killed old Kang. Jingjing ground her teeth and spat out Duo's name. Hyung Weol was shocked to hear her mention him. Then a soldier came in and reported, "Sir, the enemy has launched a surprise attack." He was stunned. A surprise attack. Jingjing remained perfectly calm, just as expected. She silently vowed, "You have the right to weep beneath my hands." Outside, Duo's group launched a full assault. The battlefield became chaotic with clashing weapons and dying screams. In an instant, the fortress became a living hell. Both the Iron Banner Alliance and the Nine Dragons cult had fought all night and marched 100 miles, but the Iron Banner Alliance had already been ambushed twice and was at a disadvantage. However, the Nine Dragons cult had grown careless after celebrating their ambush. The Iron Banner Alliance erupted with vengeance for last night's losses and instinctive hatred as they hunted the enemy. Moreover, chaotic battles favored the Iron Banner Alliance as they were wandering swordsmen by nature, and so kept cutting down enemy after enemy. He attacked without the slightest mercy, and so alone pushed back countless foes. Seeing this, Tongji volunteered, "Brother Ha, this time I'll kill Enso myself." Hyung Weol assessed his opponent. With yesterday's injury, he shouldn't have endured this long, yet he still fought so fiercely. "Forget it, I'll handle him." Just then, Jingjing said, "Third uncle, you have another opponent. Let sixth uncle deal with that dwarf." Then Tongji jumped down into the battle. He couldn't help asking, "Who is my opponent?" Jingjing's face darkened as she spoke Duo's name. Hyang Weil scoffed, "Is he really worthy of facing me?" She calmly replied, "It's not because he's strong. I want you to capture him alive." The two sides clashed fiercely. Tongji charged with his sword while shouting in So's name, and So kept swinging his sword and cutting down many enemies, and So kept charging ahead, leaving him stunned. He completely ignored Tongji and attacked those behind him. He was furious at being treated with such contempt. Tongji shouted, "Are you ignoring me?" He immediately rushed to attack Inso. Yet Inso still ignored Tongji and kept attacking others. Jingjing and Hyang Weil watched everything from above. She sighed, "Uncle Y made a grave mistake. He's completely dancing to Inso's tune. If emotions keep controlling him, even in a direct fight, elder uncle will still be the one at a disadvantage. Compared to Uncle Ha, Uncle Y is truly disappointing. In martial arts, strategy, even charisma and reputation, he should rank just below father in the cult. I truly don't understand why he's only ranked 7. Perhaps the rumor that father deliberately held Uncle Ha back is true. To father, Uncle Ha may be a greater threat than the Iron Banner Alliance." Meanwhile, Banhai was fighting many enemies alone. He glanced at his opponents, determined to wipe them all out. Seeing that, Duo quickly warned, "Don't let bloodlust cloud your judgment." Just then, a soldier attacked him from behind. Duo calmly stood there with his sword gripped tightly. The soldier shouted angrily, "Hand over your neck." But Duo easily dodged the soldier's strike. Every attack the soldier launched was effortlessly avoided by Duo. Then Duo leaped up and slashed straight through the soldier's torso. As Duo landed, the man's body split in two. Banhai was stunned to see him dodging and attacking at the same time. Lowering his sword, he calmly said, "If you're not sure you can kill, don't aim for the enemy's head." Suddenly, Banhai turned pale and shouted Duo's name, because Mungi suddenly charged out to attack him. Duo reacted quickly and dodged the strike. The slash tore a piece of his clothing. Mungi's martial art was no ordinary skill. Duo immediately realized he was facing a true master. He shifted his footing to steady himself. Mungi leveled his spear at Duo and attacked. In an instant, the spear was almost upon him. Duo quickly stepped back to avoid the attack. Bongok and Banhai anxiously shouted his name. They realized the problem. Against such a long spear, the captain was at a disadvantage. Meanwhile, Mungi kept pressing his assault on Duo. Duo retreated several steps before suddenly stopping. The next second, Duo lunged straight forward. Shocked by the sight, Banhai hurriedly shouted his name. Duo raised his sword and blocked the incoming strike. Mungi was clearly surprised by that move. Immediately afterward, Duo drove his sword straight into Mungi's chest. Caught off guard, Mungi spat out blood. Duo calmly said, "Spearmen often grow careless when the distance from their opponent increases." After striking him, Duo coldly pulled out his sword and turned away. Standing beside Mungi's corpse, he warned, "You all should be careful too." Bongok and Banhai stared blankly at everything that had just happened. Just then, Duo noticed something. Staring at the man, he said, "His face looks familiar." And Banhai realized he was the rider from earlier. Jingjing also gasped in shock, "That man." Hyang Weil suddenly turned and asked, "You mean the one who killed Mungi?" Jingjing was so furious she couldn't say a word. Then Hyang Weil suddenly leaped down from above. Hyang Weil rushed through the crowd toward one direction. His target was none other than Duo. Hyang Weil moved in to strike Duo as quickly as possible. His eyes burned with fierce determination. Duo quickly noticed Hyang Weil charging at him. He casually lifted a spear from the ground with his foot. As Hyang Weil lunged with his sharp claws, Duo gripped the spear and hurled it forward. Hyang Weil was caught off guard by the move. He hastily slashed the spear apart. Only then did Hyang Weil escape the danger. He stared at Duo and asked, "You're Duo?" Duo tightened his grip on his sword and said, "Would you believe me if I said no?" A moment later, he leaped off the ground and charged at Duo. Duo quickly realized there was no killing intent. Hyang Weil attacked, but Duo easily dodged. Bongok rushed over to help him, but the old woman dashed out and stopped him. She warned Bongok, "This is not a fight we should interfere in." Meanwhile, Duo sensed something unusual. He secretly assessed Hyang Weil. This pressure, he was no ordinary expert. Duo became even more cautious. This was the real deal. Hyang Weil coldly said, "I heard you killed an envoy. It seems it wasn't just luck." Duo tightened his grip on his sword. Then he raised it and prepared for battle. Seeing that, Hyang Weil thought, "I've never seen a stance like this." Suddenly, a dazzling light burst from Duo's sword. The glare made Hyang Weil instinctively squint. While Hyang Weil was distracted, Duo rushed forward. He unleashed one deadly attack after another. Hyang Weil gritted his teeth. Nothing existed but pure killing intent. Such combat style could never be found in the martial arts of the righteous sects. Was this the embodiment of a will that existed only to kill? Had he already accepted death? Capturing him alive would not be easy. After a brief calculation, Hyang Weal suddenly leaped into the air. Refusing to give up, he launched another assault on Duo with all his strength. He unleashed an overwhelming attack. Duo swiftly raised his sword and blocked everything. Then he spun forward and counterattacked Hyang Weal. Hyang Weal endured it all and realized this was no ordinary squad captain. Who would have thought a subordinate of the Iron Banner Alliance possessed swordsmanship worthy of the greatest masters? Meanwhile, elsewhere, Enso was still cutting down enemies. Tongji kept chasing him. "You dwarf, how long will you keep running?" Enso kept fighting without paying him any attention. Just then he noticed something. Enso saw Hyang Weal and Duo locked in a fierce battle. Tongji roared in fury, "Are you looking down on me?" The next second, a sword pierced through his chest. Enso swung his sword backward without even turning around. Tongji couldn't react and coughed up blood. Then Enso coldly kicked Tongji away. After that, Enso rushed over to support him. On the other side, Duo and the old man were still evenly matched. He stayed on the defensive, dodging every attack. In the end, Duo was overwhelmed by the immense pressure and was thrown back. He staggered back but quickly regained his footing. Hyang Weal stared at Duo and remarked that capturing him alive would be difficult. He carried the killing intent of a beast that only knew life and death. "Forgive me, young cult leader, but..." Burning with killing intent, he charged forward. "I can't hold back anymore." At that moment, Enso suddenly rushed in with his sword. He swung it with all his strength. That slash intercepted Duo and Hyang Weal as they charged at each other. After unleashing the strike, Enso landed safely. His slash temporarily halted their battle. Enso gripped his sword and looked at both of them. There had to be a reason for his actions. Hyang Weal instinctively looked toward Jingjing in the distance. She stood above, still watching everything. Jingjing had witnessed everything that had just happened. She clearly saw how Mungi had died, including the way Tongji had just lost his life. Jingjing helplessly shook her head. Hyang Weal calmly said, "It seems enough blood has been spilled today. Even death himself should be satisfied by now." Left with no choice, he ordered his forces to retreat. Hyang Weal's men immediately beat the drums on his command. Everyone fighting was stunned when the sound echoed out. Both sides lowered their swords at once. Hwa Ung, who was choking a man, also stopped. The man was released and collapsed, gasping for air. Jingjing suddenly clenched her fist. Her body began trembling. Duo silently stared in one direction. The battle ended and the Nine Dragons cult withdrew from the earthen fortress like a receding tide before setting up camp at the entrance. They had effectively admitted defeat in the counteroffensive that lasted 2 days and 1 night. Many people were wounded after the battle. In the end, by unspoken agreement, both sides entered the other's camp to recover their own dead. Both sides suffered devastating losses. The Iron Banner Alliance, which had 367 members just 2 days earlier, lost about 100 people in the Nine Dragons cult's initial surprise attack. Another 100 died during the counteroffensive, leaving just over 100 survivors. The greatest loss was the death of Jiok Cho, leader of the Blue Banner Division. Of the Nine Dragons cult's 400 members, only about 110 survived. Among them, the death of Tongji, the 6th wheel envoy, was an enormous loss. The 9 envoys were the Nine Dragons cult's 9 pillars, yet now 2 had fallen. The death of Mungi, once expected to achieve great things, was a crushing blow, especially to the cavalry. And he had been killed by Duo, the same man who killed envoy Kangsu Shim. At that moment, Jingjing was leading her troops. She was still unwilling to accept it, especially if he were to die at someone else's hands. Hyang Weal mounted his horse and replied, "He's not the kind of man who dies easily at another's hands." In the end, the surviving members of the Nine Dragons cult left Noho Mountain and retreated to Logbek Mountain in Sundan Province, their secondary base. The Iron Banner Alliance no longer had the strength to pursue, as everyone was utterly exhausted. So both sides remained locked in a stalemate until reinforcements arrived. Time flowed like water and many days passed. The scene shifted to the vast Iron Banner Alliance. Siamun Byok couldn't help asking, "When will the Black Banner Division return?" Pyong quickly reported, "We received word they passed Bongwen and should arrive in about 2 hours." Siamun Byok glanced at him curiously. "I heard that captain has earned another great achievement." He immediately replied, "You mean Duo?" This time he perfectly completed the scouting mission, rescued Yellow Banner Division leader Sanghak, and killed the Nine Dragons cult's enforcement commander, Mungi. Siamun Byok suddenly said, "I want to meet him tomorrow afternoon." Pyong respectfully answered, "I'll arrange it." The scene shifted to the Iron Banner Alliance's main gate. Duo's unit steadily marched inside, and so rode in the wagon beside the badly wounded Sang-hak. Duo strode in with confidence. As soon as he entered, he saw Seomun-byok and the others waiting. Seomun-byok and Pyong smiled and applauded to welcome Duo. Arayo also happily clapped to welcome him back. Seeing that, Duo frowned without saying a word. He coldly walked past her, leaving her stunned. Arayo stared at Duo's back in complete confusion. The scene shifted to everyone's resting room. Everyone sat there weary and worn out. Ho Chial and Hwa Ung sat across from them without saying a word. Duo lay on the bed with his eyes closed, resting. Just then, someone opened the door from outside. Bongok Banhyo and the old physician instinctively looked up. Hwa Ung and the others also turned in surprise. They saw a beautiful young woman enter. Duo remained silent when she unexpectedly appeared. She asked directly, "Who is the captain?" And Duo, lying on the bed, answered that he was. She respectfully said, "The alliance leader has summoned you." Duo found it quite strange, wondering why the alliance leader. Before he could finish speaking, the beautiful woman suddenly realized something. The next second, she quietly left the room. The old physician said, "Isn't that an honor? An ordinary captain could only dream of meeting the alliance leader." Duo slowly sat up in surprise. The old physician reminded him, "Be careful, there are many rumors that the alliance leader is insane." Hearing that, he replied, "I figured as much." The scene shifted to a garden filled with blooming red roses. The beautiful flowers made everyone stop and look. Duo was led by a beautiful woman to meet Ijun. Iron Banner Alliance leader Ijun was carefully admiring the flowers. She respectfully bowed before him. The beautiful woman quickly left, giving them privacy. Ijun continued trimming the flowers, while Duo silently observed the surroundings. Then Duo casually sat down. He absent-mindedly glanced at Ijun nearby. The late afternoon sky was breathtaking. Ijun suddenly asked, "What are you looking at in the sky?" Duo calmly replied, "Nothing." But Ijun still asked, "Then why are you staring?" Duo answered, "Because I hate looking at roses." He pressed further, "Why do you hate roses?" Duo replied, "Because I hate their color." Ijun's face darkened. "You hate the color of roses." Duo bluntly said, "It's the filthy color of blood." Angered, Ijun gripped the flower stem. "You haven't lived long enough to understand life. There are people in this world who love blood." Then he suddenly licked the blood on his hand. "No matter how much you hate it." Before Ijun could finish, Duo interrupted, "That's because this world is full of madmen." Hearing that, Ijun fell silent and smiled. Duo said nothing and stared at Ijun. Duo couldn't help remarking, "It's rare to see you smile so sincerely." Those words instantly changed Ijun's expression. But Ijun soon calmed down and said, "If you want anything, ask for it as your reward for this mission." Duo stood up. "The main force was nearly wiped out and I lost half my men. What reward could I possibly want?" He calmly replied, "If you say that after losing only a few subordinates, then how should I, who nearly destroyed the entire Iron Banner Alliance, be punished?" Duo smiled faintly and replied, "Leader, you only need to see the bigger picture. Our subordinates' lives matter only to us, so you needn't worry." Ijun snapped, "You've gone too far. I'm tired of looking at your face, so get out." Duo immediately cupped his fists. "Please forgive me, I was born lowly, so I'm foolish." Ijun couldn't help cursing him. Duo calmly lowered his hands. Watching Duo's back, Ijun asked, "Don't you crave the position of Iron Banner Alliance leader? If you do, I'll give it to you. I'll even grant you a worthy woman." Hearing that, Duo silently turned and stared at him. Then Duo walked over, leaving Ijun genuinely surprised. He suddenly picked up the cloth from the ground. Then Duo said frankly, "I'll accept the position you offered, but I must refuse that woman, whoever she is." The next moment, he coldly turned and walked away. Duo's attitude greatly surprised Ijun. Then he burst into laughter. Just then, Arayo walked over and said, "Second brother, you seem to be in a great mood today. It's rare to see you laugh so heartily." Ijun turned to her and said, "A madman just came by and said he'd accept becoming the Iron Banner Alliance leader, but he didn't want you." She was utterly stunned by his words. Arayo angrily shouted, "Which arrogant fool dared say such insolence? Arrest him at once and tear him apart." Seeing her reaction, Ijun asked curiously, "Why, are you upset because he rejected you?" Embarrassed, Arayo quickly replied, "Of course not." She then stormed out of the courtyard and happened to meet the beautiful woman. Arayo immediately questioned her. Who was the man that met the Iron Banner Alliance leader? The beautiful woman quickly replied, "I heard he's a Black Banner Division captain who earned great merit in the decisive battle at Noho Mountain." Arayo continued, "What's his name?" With her hands clasped, she answered, "It's a rather strange name, Duo." Hearing that name, Arayo froze. Time passed, and at the Iron Banner Alliance's council hall, Pyo and Seomun-byok were talking. Looking at the report, he said, his background can only be described as lowly. As for his martial arts, nothing remarkable has been found. His combat style is simply what he learned and refined by watching battlefields. After hearing this, Seomanbyuk quietly murmured Duo's name. He then remarked that Duo seemed like an utterly ordinary man with no outstanding traits, and Pyong agreed. But the more Seomanbyuk thought about it, the stranger it seemed. How could such an ordinary man kill an enemy envoy and achieve such great merit? His ability to kill doesn't come from superior martial arts, he's simply an exceptional fighter. Hearing that, he sighed, even a master dies if a blade cuts him. Pyong continued, he has innate combat instincts, sharpened by years at the bottom of society and real battlefield experience, along with a practical fighting style pieced together from techniques learned here and there. That's all there is to it. Seeing him hesitate, Seomanbyuk asked, what else? Pyong seriously replied, I believe the rest is simply luck. Seomanbyuk disagreed, luck only smiles on the capable, and Pyong accepted the lesson, saying, I'll remember that, division leader. He then continued, what about his weaknesses? Pyong opened the file and reported, he has so many weaknesses that it almost seems like he has none. He easily irritates his superiors, acts impulsively, and is eccentric. But those weaknesses have now become his strengths. Since he has no status to lose, he simply does his job regardless of whether his superiors like him. That gives him complete freedom from restraint. Even his impulsiveness and eccentricity have become a source of charisma among the lower-ranking warriors under him. They wanted to live that way too, but lacking the ability and courage, they chose to admire him instead. At last, Seomanbyuk understood why his subordinates were willing to risk their lives for him, and Pyong confirmed that was exactly the case. Having learned enough, Seomanbyuk ordered, I understand, you may leave now, and the old man respectfully replied, yes. Then Pyong quickly left the hall. Meanwhile, Seomanbyuk remained deep in thought. He analyzed the information to himself. There are two kinds of people in this world. Those who must be eliminated, and those who must be used. Duo, which one will you be? The scene shifted elsewhere, where Duo's sword rested against a cliff. He sat on a rock, quietly admiring the scenery. Duo seemed to be lost in thought. Just then, Arayo walked toward him. She suddenly stopped and stared at Duo's back. Lost in thought, he still hadn't noticed Arayo's presence. She raised her hand, wanting to say something, but no words came out. Arayo unconsciously clenched her teeth, lacking the courage at that moment. After a while, she finally shouted, why were you so rude to my second brother? Hearing her voice, Duo finally turned around. He looked slightly surprised to see Arayo there. Then Duo coldly turned away and asked, second brother, who is that? She was completely caught off guard by his question. Arayo asked in disbelief, you don't know my second brother. Duo replied without hesitation, why should I care about your family's relationships? She awkwardly explained, no, I didn't mean. Arayo found herself at a loss, then said, forget it. I heard you met the alliance leader. He glanced at her and confirmed it was true. Arayo praised him, he's eccentric, but he's a good man. Duo said nothing after hearing her words. Arayo continued, not many people know this, but the alliance leader had an older brother 3 years his senior. That brother was incredibly powerful, a genius among geniuses. He was expected to make the Iron Banner Alliance not only the strongest in Gansu, but in the entire Central Plains. But perhaps heaven envied his talent because he died young at only 24. It wasn't an accident or murder, he simply died of illness, a meaningless death. When the former alliance leader's eldest son, who carried such great expectations, died, the current alliance leader, who had never expected to inherit the position, was forced to bear immense pressure. The former alliance leader constantly pressured him, asking why, despite being born to the same parents, he could never match his brilliant older brother. Even after the former alliance leader died, the current alliance leader still lived under 3 burdens: his dead brother's perfect image, his father's obvious disappointment, and the contemptuous stares of those around him. But Duo showed no interest and simply asked, so? Arayo was once again stunned by his attitude. Duo calmly said, so what if his father compared him to his genius brother? Then what? She tried to defend Aijun, second brother, I mean the alliance leader. Before Arayo could finish, Duo cut her off. I've never had a father. She was stunned by Duo's words. Arayo couldn't hide her shock. Feeling guilty, she said, I'm sorry. But Duo shook it off. Why apologize? I've always been worthless. Arayo couldn't agree with him. Duo calmly said, when I was young, I wanted to beat him without killing him. But as I grew up, even that thought faded. And after hearing what you said, perhaps having no father is better. Arayo deeply sympathized. How tragic. But one day you'll become someone's father too, won't you? Hearing her question, Duo could only sigh. He slowly approached Arayo. I don't even know where or when I'll die. Then Duo suddenly grabbed Arayo's wrist, startling her. He coldly said, "Do you want me to create another bastard like me?" He even teased, "If you're willing to bear my child, I might consider it." Arayo was shocked he dared say that. Before she could respond, he suddenly wrapped an arm around her waist. Then he pressed his lips against hers. Arayo's eyes widened in shock as her face turned red. A moment later, she came to her senses and shoved Duo away. Furious, Arayo slapped him hard across the face. She glared at Duo with resentment. "You filthy bastard." Then Arayo turned and stormed off, cursing, "Go die somewhere on the battlefield." Seeing her reaction, Duo merely smirked in amusement. After Arayo left, he called out, "The show's over, come out." Manhwa slowly stepped forward. "You've got guts, disrespecting the Alliance leader's sister like that. Winning women with martial arts isn't your specialty. Save tricks that exploit weaknesses for your enemies." Duo sighed, "I didn't expect you to know so much about romance. It doesn't suit your appearance." Manhwa proudly replied, "Women are always drawn to my unexpected charm." After chatting for a while, Duo asked, "So why are you here?" Manhwa finally remembered. "Right, I came to deliver a message. The Supreme Leader wants to see you." Duo was both surprised and puzzled. Then Duo went to meet the leader. Byok called his name with authority. He sternly said, "The Black Banner Division achieved great merit, and your contribution cannot be denied." "So I've been considering something." Byok spoke slowly, testing him. Duo silently waited for what came next. At last, Byok declared, "I want you to serve as the branch leader's assistant, the deputy leader." Duo showed no reaction at all. Seeing no joy on his face, Byok asked, "This is an unprecedented promotion in the Iron Banner Alliance's history, so why aren't you happy?" Duo asked bluntly, "Why was I given such a promotion?" Byok replied, "You completed the reconnaissance mission, and though it was some time ago, you were the one who killed Kang Su Shim." His face turned cold as he added, "If we ignore the man who killed the enemy leader, what will others think?" Duo immediately replied, "Then what about making someone with a questionable background the deputy leader?" Byok leaned forward and looked at him strangely. "You care about what others think too." Duo answered seriously, "I don't want people to hate me over something meaningless." Byok could no longer hold back and glared at him. His voice turned cold. "Do you think the position of deputy leader is meaningless?" Duo calmly replied, "The Nine Dragons cult Su Shim was all reputation and still died at the hands of a low-ranking warrior like me. If he hadn't flaunted himself and climbed to that position, he might still be alive. The deputy leader position means nothing to me. It's just a title that makes enemies target the one who bears it." Byok was completely enraged by those words. He pointed straight at Duo, ordering him to leave. Duo had no interest in staying and turned to walk away. The door slammed shut, leaving the room in silence. Byok trembled with rage as he stood up. He couldn't help shouting to vent his anger. Outside, Pyong could only cover his ears against the outburst. Suddenly, he noticed the person standing beside him. That person's face showed both satisfaction and smugness. It seemed Pyong had something in mind. The Black Banner Division headquarters was vast and imposing. Just as expected, the Yellow Banner Division and Blue Banner Division had been merged into the Black Banner Division, and so remained the division leader from the command hall. Former Yellow Banner Division leader Sang Hak would become deputy leader after recovering from his injuries. Though few in number, the Black Banner Division had gathered many outstanding experts, making it far stronger despite having only about 60 mostly wounded members. In the eyes of the Nine Dragons cult, the Iron Banner Alliance's greatest enemy was the Black Banner Division led by Inso, even more than the Alliance itself. Among them, the Wind Unit led by Captain Duo became known as the Black Wind Unit. Though it had only 6 members, half the size of other units, it completed every deadly mission without ever failing. After surviving countless life-and-death battles, every member had become a seasoned warrior. Duo stood on a cliff looking down. Before them stretched a long, deserted road with a single stream running beside it. This was the Plain of Death. The ground was littered with countless dead horses. Duo's unit headed toward the camp. Duo led the way and said, "We're from the Black Banner Division." Hearing that, the guard saluted and said, "The division leader is waiting for you." He then led them to meet the person they had come to see. The Joker squad moved through the crowd, drawing whispers from everyone around them. Everyone was shocked that their team had only 6 people. A red banner fluttered gently in the wind. A red-haired man sat proudly in his chair and said, "The division leader said reinforcements would arrive." That would be the leader of the Red Banner Division, Jiangchen. Seeing so few people, he couldn't hide his doubts. "Is this your entire reinforcement force?" Seeing Jiangchen's attitude, Duo was displeased. "If you're dissatisfied, we can leave right now." Jiangchen frowned. "Your arrogance truly matches the rumors. I only hope your skills live up to your reputation." Duo got straight to the point. how is the battle situation? Jiangchen briefly explained, the plane of life and death is currently locked in a stalemate with the enemy within the range of their powerful bows. Duo asked the key question, why can't the Red Banner Division's 500 men advance? Jiangchen answered, the problem is Hyuk-ryeon, the 7th wheel archer of the Blood Battle Palace from the Nine Dragons cult, guarding the enemy camp. His arrows fly far and strike with incredible accuracy. Duo asked in confusion, can't you dodge the arrows once you see them coming? Jiangchen's face darkened. That weapon can hardly even be called a bow. Those giant steel arrows are infused with internal energy, making them as heavy and powerful as spears. No matter how profound your internal energy is, those iron arrows will pierce you like paper. Ever since the deputy leader was struck 3 days ago, no one has entered within 300 zhang of the Nine Dragons cult camp and returned alive. Duo asked again, can't you launch a night raid? The Black Banner Division already tried that. But Jiangchen said Hyuk-ryeon can shoot as accurately under dim moonlight as in broad daylight. We can't just wait forever for clouds to cover the moon. Hearing that, Duo sighed. Are 500 warriors really being stopped by a single bow? Jiangchen looked at Duo with hope. I sincerely hope the Black Wind Squad, the Black Banner Division's pride, can solve this. Outside, countless guards still stood watch. Holding a bow, Hwa said, I've never shot a bow before. Duo explained, you don't have to hit the target. You're the only one who can shoot an arrow 300 zhang. Standing beside him, Bongok encouraged, just try it, you big bear. Hearing that, Hwa awkwardly prepared to shoot. He drew the bow and aimed with complete focus. Hwa released the string, and the arrow flew along its path. Then it landed beyond the stream. Bongok looked confused. It didn't even reach 300 zhang before falling. Duo instructed, draw the bow harder. This time, Hwa pulled with all his strength until his whole body trembled. But he used too much force and the bow snapped in half. Bongok burst into laughter at the lone arrow still in Hwa's hand. The old physician finally asked, what exactly are you planning? Duo pointed ahead. The plane of life and death looks flat, but it's actually filled with pools and hidden rocks. The old physician still didn't understand. So what? Duo calmly said, first I'll show myself to them. Hyuk-ryeon will definitely fire that strange bow. The old woman listened closely to his plan. I'll block or dodge every arrow. Everyone was baffled by Duo's calm tone, but he continued. Then everyone hides behind puddles or rocks. Meanwhile, Hwa will locate Hyuk-ryeon and snipe him. We keep advancing undercover until we get close enough to kill him in melee. The old woman asked in confusion, that's the whole plan. Duo nodded, that's enough. The old woman confirmed, so your plan against Hyuk-ryeon's blood war bow, wielded by the Nine Dragons sect's strongest 7th wheel archer, is simply to dodge and keep advancing undercover. Duo added, Hwa will support you. But Hwa turned pale and tried to refuse. I'm not confident, what if I miss again? The old woman commented, honestly, I admit the captain's swordsmanship is excellent, but your inner energy is weaker than mine. And in hand-to-hand combat, you're no match for Bongok. Your agility and lightness skill are slower than Hwa's. Even your footwork isn't as mysterious as Ho Chial's. Manhwa, annoyed at being left out, burst out, what about me, don't I have any strengths? Bongok shot back, are we really comparing who beats the captain at what? Still, the old woman humored Manhwa. Of course you have strengths. Bongok shot back, are we really comparing who beats the captain at what? Still, the old woman humored Manhwa. Of course you have strengths. Your natural killing intent surpasses the captain's. She paused briefly. But, for some reason in a head-on fight, none of us can beat the captain. Only then did Duo speak. The same goes for Hyuk-ryeon. As long as I get close, I'll definitely win. The old woman stressed, that's exactly the problem. If luck isn't on our side. Duo smiled, if it comes down to luck then let's make a bet. Anyone want to bet with me? Everyone was stunned by his offer. Bongok volunteered first. I'll bet 10 coins the captain succeeds. Manhwa seriously said, my rule is never to bet on something impossible. Then he quickly changed his tune. I'll also bet 10 coins on success. The old woman asked the other two, anyone betting on failure? Ho Chial and Hwa awkwardly looked at each other. The old woman turned to Duo, then it isn't much of a bet, captain. Because I'm betting on success too, she grinned excitedly. Seeing them like that, Duo could only sigh helplessly. As he turned away, he said, then I'll bet on failure to make it a real wager. If I win, keep that betting money as your inheritance. Night gradually fell, covering the entire Red Banner Division camp. On the table lay a wooden crossbow found in the armory, and Duo immediately recognized it as a siege crossbow. The old man remarked, with this, even Hwa, who can't draw a bow, can use it. Manhwa asked from the side, are we really taking this into battle? Hwa Ung easily picked up the giant crossbow. Banhai stared in shock. He asked, but doesn't it take forever to reload, and didn't they say it takes 8 oxen just to pull it? Hwa Ung began preparing the crossbow. In moments it was fully ready to fire. Banhai was stunned that Hwa Ung finished in just a few moves. Duo calmly said, "It's getting dark, practice shooting tomorrow morning." After saying that, Duo turned and left. Only then did Hochial approach. "May I ask you something?" He spoke very seriously. "Do you know the ultimate secret of footwork?" Duo frowned slightly at Hochial's question. Seeing no answer, Hochial awkwardly asked, "Then what are you thinking when dodging an opponent's attacks?" Duo replied briefly, "Stay away from the enemy and close to myself." Sweating, Hochial said, "Right, that's called entering the opponent's blind spot." But Duo had no idea what he meant. "I don't know any of that," and Hochial grew annoyed. How can someone this clueless be a captain? So he briefly explained, footwork is about maintaining the right angle between yourself and your opponent. There are 4 basic footwork steps: step, push step, open step, and link step, and you don't know those either, do you? Every other footwork technique is just a variation of those 4. Captain, you're really clueless. I suppose you don't even know the 3-talent step or half 3-talent step. As Banhyo and Bongok walked by, they wondered, what's that guy doing? After a long night, the sun finally rose above the mountains. The Red Banner Division's flag fluttered in the wind. Across the stream from where Duo stood was the 9 Dragons cult. He slowly stepped forward. Duo carried an imposing aura. He advanced boldly with the Red Banner Division marching behind him, filled with fighting spirit. Jiangchen watched Duo in deep thought. Joker Squad had also fully assembled. The old man instructed, "Focus your inner energy into the upper energy center and find the point where the bolt will fly." Hwa Ung followed the instruction and slowly raised the crossbow. Hochial only said, "Don't die, Duo, because you're supposed to die by my hand." Timing it perfectly, the old man immediately ordered, "Now." At that instant, a dazzling red flash appeared from the opposite side. A terrifying bolt shot through the air. It streaked past Duo. The bolt was so sharp it sliced the cloth tied around Duo's head. Duo stood completely stunned by its wind-like speed. He quickly hid behind a rock, thinking, is this a warning to a half-baked warrior, so you don't like sneak attacks? Hyokryong held his bow, ready to fire at any moment. Bongok hurriedly pointed out the target's position to Hwa Ung, but he still couldn't find it. Another red flash appeared from the opposite side. It instantly shattered the rock shielding Duo. The Joker Squad watched with both worry and confusion. Only then did Hwa Ung react and raise the crossbow in his hands. He powerfully fired the first bolt. The sharp bolt flew straight toward the 9 Dragons cult. It instantly killed one of their subordinates. Seeing this, Hyokryong was caught off guard. He immediately shouted, "Fall back 50 steps." Just after saying that, Hyokryong noticed something approaching. It was Duo, who had closed the distance in an instant while he was distracted. Everyone was overjoyed, seeing the plan about to succeed. Hyokryong quickly regained his composure and drew his bow to shoot Duo. Bongok immediately told Hwa Ung to be ready with support. At that moment, an arrow came flying straight toward Duo, but in an instant, he skillfully slipped past the deadly arrow. Hwa Ung immediately recognized that footwork. Watching Duo's movements, he was astonished. The Baizhang sect's secret footwork. Duo calmly advanced with graceful movements, steadily closing in on his opponent. Hwa Ung glanced at Ho Chial and noticed his expression looked rather grim. Hyokryong kept firing more arrows to stop Duo. Yet Duo continued dodging every arrow without faltering. However, when too many arrows came at once, Duo had no choice but to block them with his blade. After escaping those arrows, another one grazed his arm and wounded him. Seeing Duo remain so calm, Hyokryong grew furious. He decided to fire 3 arrows at once, but just before releasing them, another spear came flying toward him. It struck the ground, kicking up a cloud of smoke. Seeing the missed spear, Hyokryong became even more confused. He ignored the obstructing arrows and stepped forward. Bongok encouraged Hwa Ung, "Good, your accuracy is improving." Blood slowly seeped from the arrow wound across Duo's shoulder. Clutching his injured shoulder, Duo silently cursed it. He forced himself onward, relying on the footwork Ho Chial had taught him to close the distance. The closer he got, the harder it became to dodge. No sooner had Duo finished thinking than another arrow flew toward him, but it landed somewhere other than where Duo was standing. The old woman immediately realized it. "A curved arrow?" Banhyo curiously asked, "What's that?" The old woman explained, "The arrow's flight is being bent." Banhyo was shocked. "That's even possible." She explained further, once an archer reaches a high level, they can control both the arrowhead and the fletching. Manhwa understood, so hiding behind cover is useless. The old woman nodded. That's right. The only option is to keep moving. As Duo closed in on Hyokryong, he was struck by another arrow. Distracted by his wound, he accidentally tripped over a wooden stick. Duo was stunned and lost his balance. When another arrow came, he could only duck instead of advancing. The impact threw him backward. He rolled across the ground, and his head slammed into the rock that had sheltered him. Hwa immediately fired another crossbow bolt in support. Duo sat there blankly, watching the bolt fly toward the enemy. Hyokryong kept firing arrows while sidestepping the bolt. His arrow shot out and shattered the rock beside Duo. The violent impact left Duo unable to avoid the flying stone fragments. Jiangchen silently watched everything from beginning to end. He let out a sigh. It's over. Duo had now collapsed. His head was covered in blood after the repeated impacts. Even so, Duo forced himself to stay conscious and lay helplessly on the ground. Hyokryong still hadn't lowered his bow and drew another arrow. After several missed shots, Hwa finally regained some confidence, this time for sure. But at the crucial moment, the crossbow in his hands gave out and shattered, leaving Hwa stunned. Everyone else froze at the sight. They were all shocked and at a loss as the crossbow broke. The old woman and Manhwa couldn't believe it would end like this. Suddenly, someone stepped forward. Hochial angrily shouted across the camp, Duo, you bastard. Who gave you permission to die? You are not allowed to die before I kill you myself. Duo recovered slightly and forced a bitter smile toward Hochial. Hochial shouted even louder, move Duo. The other Red Banner Division comrades also cheered him on. Everyone shouted Duo's name. Though the Red Banner Division was outnumbered, their spirit completely overwhelmed the Nine Dragons sect. Jiangchen frowned at their overwhelming morale. Suddenly, Bongok grabbed a bow and arrow and charged forward. The old woman was shocked by his sudden action, but Bongok kept rushing ahead. If I can't hit him from here, I'll get close enough until my arrow can reach him. Watching Bongok charge from behind, Duo shouted, you idiot. Hyokryong didn't hesitate to fire another arrow at them. Duo shouted in panic, get out of the way. Instead of retreating, Bongok skillfully dodged every arrow and kept advancing. Countless arrows flew, yet none could hit her. After getting closer, Bongok finally raised her bow. I've closed the distance enough. He's within my range now. But just as she was about to shoot, another arrow flew straight at Bongok. She couldn't react in time, and it pierced her shoulder. Hwa and Manhwa panicked when they saw Bongok injured. The arrow left Bongok's arm numb and unable to move. Hyokryong seized the chance and drew his bow again. Seeing Bongok's condition, Duo's rage boiled over. He stepped forward and shouted, if you want to shoot, shoot me. Hwa could no longer stand by. Seeing him about to charge, Hochial rushed after him. Hwa stopped. The old man and Manhwa also decided to risk everything. The four men charged forward one after another. Hyokryong mercilessly fired several more arrows. He reached back for his last arrow, but as soon as he looked up, Duo was already above him. He hurriedly raised his bow to shoot Duo. Duo gave him no chance and threw the blade in his hand at Hyokryong. Unable to dodge, he could only use his bow as a shield. The instant he blocked it, Duo drove a punch straight into his face. In the next instant, Duo smashed another punch into Hyokryong's face. Duo's expression turned ice cold as he grabbed Hyokryong's bowstring. The thick bowstring stretched right before his eyes. Like a madman, Duo mercilessly wrapped it around Hyokryong's neck. The tighter he pulled, the more his fury surged and the stronger his grip became. Only after the kneeling man stopped responding did Duo let go. He released the bowstring, letting Hyokryong collapse to the ground. Witnessing Hyokryong's death, the Nine Dragons cult soldiers erupted in rage. They charged together to avenge him, but one man was pierced through the chest by 2 spears before he could act. As soon as Bongok recovered, she rushed over to protect Duo. The 5 members of Joker Squad formed a line around the exhausted Duo, and Bongok shouted, don't think you'll lay a finger on our leader. Seeing the opportunity, the Red Banner Division immediately ordered a full advance. They charged into battle with overwhelming momentum. Meanwhile, Jiangchen could only stand there in stunned silence. The two armies had now erupted into a fierce battle. The Wind Unit carried out its role of supporting the Red Banner Division. The full-scale battle began after the death of the 7th wheel archer, Hyokryong. It continued until the moon rose and later set. It ended only after the 9 Dragons cult withdrew from the plane of life and death, retreating to Mount Yongbek. The Red Gold Canyon in Gansu was the territory of the 9 Dragons cult. People crowded the city gate, coming and going. Suddenly, everyone's attention turned to a white-haired young woman on horseback, and they all cheered, the young mistress has arrived. Someone was already waiting to help her dismount. Welcome back, young mistress. A man was about to speak, but Jingjing quickly walked past him. The two men looked at each other in confusion, unsure what to do. Jingjing walked alone into the magnificent estate. Inside the main hall, the 9 Dragons cult leader, Daguhong, was reading a book. Jingjing happily ran in and shouted, "Father." Seeing her, Daguhong immediately smiled with joy. "You're back. I heard you insisted on capturing Duo alive and ruined everything." Jingjing said guiltily, "I'm sorry, father." Daguhong asked, after capturing him alive, what were you planning to do, torture him? But Jingjing didn't answer and instead rushed into his arms. Suddenly, Daguhong's expression froze in shock. Jingjing had actually dared to stab him from behind with a dagger. Clutching his wound in pain, Daguhong watched her pull the dagger out. Jingjing's face was no longer her beautiful one but had twisted into something grotesque as she smiled and asked, "Who is Duo?" In a small house still lit in the middle of the night, Duo quietly poured himself a cup of wine. Bongok struggled to finish the food before him with his injured arm. His hand could no longer hold things steadily and kept trembling. In the end, Bongok could no longer endure the pain and dropped his spoon. Arayo appeared at the doorway and said, "You two have been through a lot." Surprised to see her, Bongok hurriedly tried to get up and greet her, but Arayo stopped him. "It's fine, stay where you are." Suddenly, she noticed something inside the room. Duo was still calmly drinking wine despite having a visitor. Arayo walked over and asked, "It's good that you earned merit, but why do you always come back covered in injuries?" Duo replied teasingly, "Didn't I tell you last time to go die somewhere?" The memory of Duo forcibly kissing her instantly flashed through Arayo's mind. Pouting, she confiscated the wine jug from Duo's hand. Arayo left despite his displeasure. Wine isn't good for recovering from injuries. As she left, Bongok, despite being injured, still jumped out of bed and bowed. Watching Arayo leave, Duo frowned deeply. Smiling brightly, Bongok asked, "Should I bring you more wine?" Suddenly, another voice rang out, "No need." Sang-hak leaned against the wall with a jug of wine and said, "I heard you like wine, so I brought a jar." Bongok walked over, intending to bow to the deputy leader. He then sat down to drink with Duo. Duo thoughtfully held up his cup, still hesitant to taste it. But the moment he swallowed a sip, his face lit up, its gold honor clear. Duo quickly took another sip. Seeing how much he enjoyed it, Sang-hak happily emptied his own cup. Duo commented, "It must be at least 30 years old." Excited, Sang-hak poured him another cup. Exactly 35 years. Duo casually tore off a hot chicken drumstick. After one bite, his face filled with surprise. Duo couldn't help admitting, "This chicken is truly delicious." Sang-hak kept refilling Duo's cup. After sitting for a while, Sang-hak finally asked, "There's something I want to ask. Did you see the little girl imprisoned in that stone chamber?" Their conversation immediately caught Bongok's attention. She recalled that day, before leaving the stone chamber, Bongok had asked Duo, "What are you going to do with that girl?" Duo didn't seem to care. Carrying someone on his back, he replied, "I'll leave her to you." At that time, only Bongok and Jingjing remained in the stone chamber. Duo now also remembered the girl's appearance. He answered Sang-hak, "I let her go." Hearing that, Bongok felt uneasy. Did the captain know from the start that I'd release her? Delighted by the answer, Sang-hak slapped his thigh. "That's great, I was worried you'd killed her. Because I want to kill that vicious girl with my own hands." Bongok was stunned by his words. She asked, "Deputy leader, who exactly is she? Why do you hate her so much?" Sang-hak replied, "That girl is the young mistress of the 9 Dragons sect, Dagu Jingjing. She must pay for tearing my body apart." Bongok was completely shocked by the revelation. Night blanketed the Iron Banner Alliance's territory. Back at the Joker Squad's small room, Bongok sat alone beneath a tree in a daze. The shock still hadn't faded from her eyes, even after all this time. She recalled Sang-hak saying the girl in the stone chamber was the young mistress of the 9 Dragons sect. Jingjing's face resurfaced in Bongok's mind as she tearfully asked, "The one who just left was Duo, wasn't it?" Bongok let out a heavy sigh. Hwa suddenly appeared. "There you are." He gently reminded her, "The cold wind isn't good for your injuries. Why did you come outside?" Bongok replied quietly, "I just have a few things to think about." Suddenly, Hwa sat down beside her. Bongok spoke first, "Have you ever been in love?" Bongok spoke first, "Have you ever been in love?" Bongok spoke first, "Have you ever been in love?" Hwa admitted she had been a disciple of the Baizhang sect and was killed in the battle against the Siaka clan. Bongok was shocked, "No way, our captain." Hwa understood her thoughts, she wasn't killed by the captain. Realizing she had asked the wrong question, Bongok apologized, but Hwa didn't mind. He then asked her, "But why do you ask?" Feeling awkward, Bongok quickly stood up. "Oh, it's nothing, we should head back." The two of them then walked back inside together. Jingjing's name lingered in Bongok's thoughts. Elsewhere, amid smoke and flames, stood the 9 Dragons cult's main headquarters, Red Gold. Jingjing was followed by Hyungweol. Her face was filled with guilt and worry. "Father must be furious, right?" Standing behind her, Hyungweol respectfully replied, "He has probably already received the report. I'll take the blame before the cult leader, so don't worry, young leader." leader. Jingjing said nothing more and simply thanked him. The two opened the door and entered a room. Da Guhong had been waiting for them, and as soon as he saw Jingjing, he questioned her. So you finally arrived. I heard you ruined everything because you insisted on capturing Duo alive. Jingjing immediately replied angrily, how could I let the man who killed Su Shim die so easily? Da Guhong calmly asked back, and after capturing him alive, what were you going to do? Torture him? Not only Su Shim, but 6th Wheel Envoy Tong Ji and 7th Wheel Envoy Hyuk Ryeon also died in battle. Now is not the time to be blinded by personal vengeance. If this continues, we'll lose Gansu to the Iron Banner Alliance. That's why I've decided. I'll request aid from the Green Forest Alliance. Hyung Weal immediately objected. Cult leader, you can't do that. But Da Guhong insisted, I've already made this decision after discussing it with the 9 Dragons cult's Grand Master, Kang Han. Hyung Weal firmly argued the Green Forest Alliance is a bandit group. They'll help us and then loot everything we have. Da Guhong raised his voice in anger. Hyung Weal, the decision has been made, and I've already received word that the Green Forest Alliance has sent its forces. That settled the matter, and Hyung Weal could only remain silent in frustration. A while later, Jingjing and Hyung Weal left, but Hyung Weal was still furious. He couldn't help grumbling. Working with bandits like the Green Forest Alliance is no different from letting wolves into the house. Suddenly, Jingjing stopped, turned around, and asked Hyung Weal, by the way, don't you find something strange? Father seems different somehow. In a cold, gloomy place, a cave stood before a dark, bottomless cliff. At the bottom of the abyss lay a mountain of piled-up skulls. Among the piles of bones, a few bodies were still intact, as if they had only recently fallen. A man lying atop the bones suddenly woke up. It was none other than Da Guhong, and the moment he opened his eyes, he smelled the stench of rotting corpses. Before Da Guhong stretched an endless abyss enclosed by 2 cliffs. He recalled what had happened. They thought I was dead, so they threw me in here. Jingjing's beautiful smiling face appeared in his mind, but then it changed into that grotesque face. Da Guhong realized, no, that wasn't Jingjing. He tried to sit up but couldn't move. I can't move. What kind of poison is this? I absolutely can't let everything end like this. It can't end here. I refuse to die while everything is still unfinished. Thinking of the 9 Dragons cult and Jingjing, Da Guhong suddenly managed to clench his fist. At the Red Banner Division camp in Mount Yongbik of the Iron Banner Alliance, Jiang Chen sat inside the camp under the flickering candlelight. He asked suspiciously, so this really is the Supreme Leader's order? The man standing across from Jiang Chen merely folded his arms in silence. His dismissive attitude made Jiang Chen visibly displeased. Yet he remained deeply confused by the document before him, and cold sweat covered his forehead. Was Siamun Byok really ordering him to betray the Black Banner Division? Duo's image flashed through his mind. Had he become so powerful that Siamun Byok now saw him as a threat? Or did they simply prefer a dead hero over a living rebel? Jiang Chen frowned and said, tell him I'll do as he ordered. The paper in his hand was slowly consumed by the candle's flame. It burned completely before the other man's eyes. The Black Banner Division was stationed between steep mountain cliffs. As the banners fluttered in the wind, Sang Hak's voice rang out. Today we'll launch a full assault on Mount Yongbik. This operation is a joint mission between the Black Banner Division and the Red Banner Division. And so stood quietly beside him, observing. Sang Hak continued, as you can see, Mount Yongbik is so barren that there are almost no trees. The path is winding, filled with strange cliffs and jagged rocks. First, the Black Banner Division will advance through the winding canyon and penetrate deep into Mount Yongbik. Duo asked, so we're drawing the enemy out before ambushing them? And Sang Hak nodded. Exactly. If we're ambushed from both sides of the canyon, we'll smash through everything blocking our path and keep advancing without stopping. Then Ban Hyo asked, but if enemies are waiting ahead too, won't we be trapped from both front and rear? Instead of answering directly, Sang Hak continued, their plan is likely to lure us deeper while pretending to retreat, then capture us once we're fully inside. Duo's expression turned serious. So we're knowingly walking into a trap. Sang Hak explained further, once we're surrounded, we'll form a defensive circle. Then those 9 Dragons cult bastards will think we're trapped rats and toy with us at their leisure. While the Black Banner Division holds formation and pins them down, the 300 Red Banner Division troops behind us will attack the 9 Dragons cult from outside. Duo bluntly said, without perfect coordination, this is just a suicide plan, so who came up with it? Sang Hak sternly called out, Red Banner Division leader. Hearing that, Duo simply remained silent. The sky above the Black Banner Division camp gradually darkened. Duo stood before Bongok as if he had something to assign. He gently said, you'll stay behind and guard the camp today. Bongok immediately asked, why am I the only one? Seeing her waving hand, Duo annoyingly smacked it. She nearly teared up from the painful hit. Duo looked at Bongok seriously. With your condition, you'll only slow everyone down. Then he left with the team. Manhwa lingered behind and said, "Guard the camp properly, rookie." Bangok pouted as she watched them leave. Meanwhile, at a deep cliff in the barren wasteland, and so led the group, with Jongdu following behind. The old woman walked behind Duo and remarked, "No matter how I look at it, this attack is far too reckless. In a place with this many forks, whoever controls the terrain wins." Duo had understood that from the start. This is enemy territory. Of course they know the paths better than we do. The old woman grew even more puzzled. With so many branching paths, once the formation breaks, escape becomes impossible. We won't even know which way to run. One wrong step and we'll be trapped like fish in a net. Suddenly a voice drew their attention. Ambush. As if waiting for that moment, Duo shot ahead and shouted, "Then struggle with everything you've got until the Red Banner Division tears this net apart." A long column advanced beneath rows of black banners. Now the Black Banner and Red Banner forces faced each other head-on within the narrow canyon. Sang-hak commanded powerfully, "Vanguard formation, charge and break through, stay close and don't fall behind." High above the canyon, a man and the troops behind him silently observed the battle. "Idiots, those bastards are walking straight into the trap." The man was Yang Ryu Jiang, the fifth wheelmaster of the Nine Dragons sect. Back at the Black Banner Division camp, Bangok sat alone in the tent, feeling dejected. Does even the captain think I'm just baggage? Or is it because I let the Nine Dragons sect's young master go? Have I really looked this miserable these past few days? After thinking for a while, she suddenly stood up. I can't just sit here. Bangok tightly gripped the spear beside her. Her determination surged. I'll follow them even if I have to go alone. Bangok secretly slipped through the narrow mountain passes under the blazing sun. Her eyes were filled with determination and fighting spirit. In a desolate desert, a massive fissure split the ground, and below it a group marched forward. They all seemed in a great hurry, rushing ahead. Duo suddenly looked back and said to the old woman, "Looks like we've escaped the ambush." She immediately replied, "Fewer casualties than expected." Duo looked ahead again and said, "Probably because we're used to fighting like this." Banhwa, running behind them, added, "We've got plenty of experience with full-scale assaults." Hearing that, Duo showed no pride and cautiously replied, "The real problem is what's waiting for us ahead." Just then, a foot slammed heavily onto the ground with intimidating force. It was Inso's group, and he stood before them shouting, "Stop." Across from them stood another equally fierce group. Their leader was Manbi. He crossed his arms and shouted, "This place will be your grave." As expected, Duo's group halted, and Banhwa gritted his teeth, whispering, "We're surrounded from both sides." Sang-hak immediately turned and ordered the men behind him, "Form a circle." The shield bearers instantly closed ranks, pressing their shields together while staggering their positions for a solid defense. Before long, Duo's group had formed a tight defensive circle. Seeing this, Manbeek sneered, "Just like rats trapped in a jar." Duo frowned, raised his hands into a guard, and replied, "Fine, let's see how many we can take down before the Red Banner Division arrives." The scene shifted to another location. Bangok was walking forward. Suddenly, he widened his eyes and exclaimed, "Huh, the Red Banner Division, why are they coming down the mountain? Was the attack cancelled? Where's the Black Banner Division?" The man leading them replied wearily, "Yeah, the Black Banner Division moved ahead long ago. But then the division leader suddenly cancelled the operation and ordered us back. The message should have reached the Black Banner Division too, so they'll return soon." Hearing that, Bangok politely lowered his head and thanked them. Suddenly, he noticed a man approaching and exclaimed, "Red Banner Division Leader." Unexpectedly, Jiangchen looked slightly startled upon seeing him. Bangok introduced himself, "I'm Bangok from the Black Banner Division's Joker Squad. When will the Black Banner Division receive the order to withdraw from the mountain?" As soon as he heard that question, Jiangchen's face turned pale with shock. He forced himself to stay calm and hesitantly replied, "The message has been sent, they'll be back soon," before hurriedly walking away. Even so, Bangok noticed Jiangchen's strange behavior and narrowed his eyes suspiciously. The next instant, Bangok leaped over Jiangchen. Seeing this, Jiangchen immediately pointed at him and shouted, "He's a spy, seize him." Bangok had just landed when he froze for a moment and turned around. Everyone else also looked at Jiangchen in confusion. To their surprise, he had already launched an attack and charged straight at them. His weapon's cord had already been readied in his hand. He shot forward at terrifying speed. Jiangchen's target was Bangok, and he had already closed the distance. His weapon shot straight ahead, and only then did Bangok snap out of it and leap backward. He shouted in shock, "Division leader, what's wrong?" But Jiangchen didn't stop and kept charging toward him. Bangok instantly leaped high into the air to evade. He flipped several times in midair before landing back on the ground. After landing on the ground, the two stood facing each other. Jiangchen gritted his teeth in disbelief. "I can't believe you've dodged my attacks twice." Only then did Bangok fully realize the truth and shouted angrily, so you really betrayed us. Jiangchen charged at him again, roaring, "Die, you bastard." Bangok leaped high into the air to evade once more. While airborne, he thrust his foot straight into Jiangchen's chest. After landing one kick, he used the momentum to launch another. Seeing this, Jiangchen immediately raised his weapon to guard his chest. Even so, Bangok's kick shattered the weapon, blocking him. Bangok's foot suddenly whipped upward again. This kick was aimed directly at Jiangchen's jaw. Riding the momentum, Bangok unleashed a flurry of kicks to Jiangchen's face before he could react. After taking several blows, Jiangchen staggered backward in a daze. Bangok stared at him with a grim expression. At that moment, every Red Banner Division soldier stared in the same direction. Before anyone noticed, they had completely surrounded Bangok. Seeing this, he roared angrily, "Move, gather together." Bangok immediately swung both of his spears straight at them. The spears swept through so quickly that they couldn't react. Bangok quickly carved a bloody path to escape, but another group was already blocking his way. Bangok didn't slow down and instead charged even faster. He leaped over their heads and rushed forward. Bangok decisively cleared the crowd and kept running. Meanwhile, Jiangchen remained where he was, clutching his face with gritted teeth, trembling in pain. By then, Bangok had already left the pursuers far behind. With a grim face, he thought, "The Red Banner Division leader has betrayed us." The scene shifted elsewhere. At that moment, Duo's group and Man Beek's forces were locked in a fierce battle. Soldiers on both sides swung their weapons viciously at each other. Hwa Ung fought barehanded, while Ho Chial unleashed a barrage of kicks from behind. Zhang Du used his spiked hammer to deliver devastating blows to the enemy. Elsewhere, and so was fiercely battling Ryu Jiang. Smirking, Ryu Jiang raised his sword and easily blocked the attack, but just then and so glanced back and saw a whip flying toward him. Seeing it, he instantly crouched to dodge. Right after that, and so gritted his teeth and turned to look behind him. The one wielding the whip was So Ryon, who was approaching alongside Man Ok. Elsewhere, Duo was surrounded by Man Beek's men. He thought, "The Red Banner Division isn't coming. The enemy must have anticipated the plan and intercepted them first, but the Red Banner Division betraying us is more likely. Since they never came, we'll have to escape on our own." Thinking that, he looked around at everyone fighting. They were clearly at a disadvantage, standing close together. They relied on each other against 300 enemies with only 50 Black Banner Division soldiers. Duo glanced elsewhere where many of Inso's men had already fallen and thought, "No, that number has dropped even more. The situation is terrible." Duo gritted his teeth and stared ahead, fearing, "Will this be our grave?" Just then, another enemy rushed at Duo from behind with a spear, shouting, "Die." Duo immediately swung his blade in a wide arc and knocked him back. In truth, a power was surging within Duo, a power called rage, or the instinct to reject death. Thanks to that power, he had escaped death countless times, and Duo's eyes gradually shone brighter. Terrifying killing intent poured out as his exhausted body regained strength. His fatting focus returned, and every nerve awakened. The scene shifted to Bangok, who was desperately rushing forward. Bangok hurriedly leaped from one rock to another. Tears streamed down as he prayed, "Please stay safe, Captain." He kicked off another rock and sped ahead. Bangok charged straight toward the cracks ahead. Over there, both sides were still locked in a fierce, undecided battle. The old woman slashed through 2 enemy soldiers with a single strike. Suddenly, another enemy tried to stab her from behind with a spear. She instantly turned and caught the incoming spear. Then she thrust it back into its owner. Another enemy tried to sneak up on her, but she noticed him as well. She mercilessly cut him down with her blade. Just then, Duo came over and said, "We have to break out." Hearing that, she raised her sword slightly and replied, "We need to retreat the way we came." Duo pointed in one direction. "Take branch leader in that way, I'll go the opposite way." The old woman asked in confusion, "Wouldn't it be better if we all went together?" Duo replied, "With such limited escape routes, splitting into 2 groups is better. If we split up, they'll either chase the branch leader or come after me." Duo stood there firmly and answered calmly. After hearing him, the old woman nodded in agreement. Duo smiled faintly and looked back at her. "There's no telling who'll survive." Turning her back to Duo, the old woman walked the other way and replied, "You're right." As soon as she finished speaking, Duo leaped forward with a roar. Duo sprinted toward the chaotic battlefield ahead. Seeing Duo rush past, Banhwa, who was fighting, turned around in surprise. Ho Chial and Hwa Ung also looked toward Duo, and Ho Chial asked in confusion, "That bastard." Banhwa immediately started running after Duo, and Ho Chial hurried after him, shouting, "Are you running away alone like a coward?" Hwa Ung chased after them, saying, "Let's go together." Elsewhere, Ryu Jiang was locked in a fierce battle. He suddenly spotted the old man charging ahead and stared in shock. Ryu Jiang then noticed a group advancing aggressively, and so was with them. They openly withdrew from the battlefield. Seeing that, Ryujiang gritted his teeth in silent fury. So Rion stepped behind him and quietly asked, "What do we do now?" Ryujiang gritted his teeth and replied, "Forget him. Eighth wheel envoy Manbeek will chase him. He's only delaying his death." And so's group rushed forward at full speed. They dashed through the jagged rocks inside the canyon. Suddenly, the old man abruptly stopped, causing those behind him to halt as well. Standing before them was Manbeek with several soldiers blocking their path. Manbeek stood proudly and mocked, "So you managed to make it this far," for he was the Nine Dragons cult's eighth wheel envoy. Butcher and so silently glared back at him. Manbeek raised his weapon and sneered, "Let's see whether your longsword or my golden thread staff is stronger." With that, he charged straight in. And so immediately raised his sword to block, and heavy steel clashed loudly. After the exchange, Manbeek sneered, "Judging by that sound, your blade is already badly damaged." And so refused to back down and struck again. Manbeek swiftly raised his staff to block, and so's sword was knocked aside and slammed heavily to the ground. Seeing this, he quickly leaped backward. Manbeek approached with a mocking smile, "I wonder how many more blows that sword can take." And so was now surrounded by Manbeek and two spear-wielding soldiers. Just then, he noticed another spearman charging from behind. At that moment, Jongdu rushed in from the rear and knocked the soldier away with his mace, roaring, "Where do you think you're going? Division leader, let me fight beside you," Jongdu declared as he stepped in front of Enso with unwavering resolve. Seeing this, Enso looked worried and paled slightly as he called out Jongdu's name. Meanwhile, the old man was also struggling against numerous enemies. He suddenly turned to look behind him. Sang-hak was surrounded by many enemies, attacking him one after another. Elsewhere, Enso and Jongdu fought side by side, defeating many foes. But Jongdu had lost an arm, greatly reducing his combat strength. Seeing that, the old man murmured, "He won't last much longer." "But I can't let him die," he said, glaring ahead with determination. He immediately used his sword to block two incoming spears. Then he swung his sword and cut down both enemies. Right after that, the old man sprinted toward Enso's group. Enso was at a disadvantage, as Manbeek raised his sharp weapon to stab him. At the same time, the old physician suddenly charged forward, startling an enemy soldier. The man quickly raised his spear to defend himself, but the old physician lightly slashed him down with a single strike. Without stopping, he slammed his shoulder hard into the man. The enemy was sent flying straight toward Manbeek, who was still fighting. Manbeek immediately noticed someone flying toward his back. He instantly turned around and smashed his weapon into the man's back. Only after the man coughed up blood did Manbeek realize it was one of his own. Taking advantage of his opening, and so immediately swung his sword from behind in a surprise attack. But Manbeek was no ordinary fighter and blocked the strike with his spear. At that very moment, another sword pierced straight through Manbeek's body. He turned around in shock. The one who had stabbed him was the old physician, and the air seemed to freeze. And so reacted instantly, raising his sword and slashing straight at Manbeek's neck. The air seemed to freeze once again, as the sky above the cliffs remained clear. And so held his sword and silently looked down at Manbeek's corpse. Seeing this, all of Manbeek's soldiers froze and stopped fighting. The old physician nodded slightly at Enso and was about to urge him to leave, but Enso suddenly stared ahead in shock. Jongdu was already at his limit, with two enemy spears driven through his body. Seeing that, Enso roared in anger and rushed toward Jongdu. Barely conscious, Jongdu weakly whispered, "Division leader," before collapsing. Enso hurried over and embraced Jongdu, whose chest was already soaked in bright red blood. Even as blood poured from his mouth, Jongdu weakly called out, "Division leader." After saying that, he slipped from Enso's arms. Enso sat there in stunned silence as the old physician walked over, patted his shoulder, and said nothing. He gently pulled Enso's hand away from Jongdu and shouted, "Let's go." Sang-hak and the old physician grabbed Enso by both shoulders and quickly pulled him away. Sang-hak and the old physician grabbed Enso by both shoulders and quickly pulled him away. Enso's face darkened, his mouth open but unable to speak. Jongdu had stopped breathing, with blood flowing from his mouth. The old physician suppressed his grief, never looking back, and quietly said, "Farewell." The group had already moved a considerable distance away from the others. Elsewhere, 4 people had gathered together. Looking at the other 3, Duo asked, "Is this all that's left?" Limping, Banhyo angrily replied, "When we broke through, there were still about 15 of us." Gasping for breath, Hwa Ung asked, "How much farther do we have to go?" Hearing that, Duo snapped, "Idiot, I don't even know where we're supposed to go now." Ho Chial angrily exclaimed, "You mean you were leading us without knowing where?" Duo calmly replied, "Should I have stayed there instead?" Ho Chial was left speechless for a moment but still argued, "Now that we've escaped, aren't you going to lead us somewhere safe?" Unexpectedly, Duo looked at him seriously and asked, "Where is safe?" "Rejoin the Red Banner Division's main force, the group that abandoned us after cornering us. If we return, Siamon Byok has either betrayed us or been killed by the 9 Dragons sect. Ho Chial could only sigh helplessly. Anyway, the farther from the enemy, the better. Duo replied at once, then let's go. Ho Chial asked, go where? Duo calmly told everyone, we're heading back to the Iron Banner Alliance. Ho Chial was startled, straight back to the Iron Banner Alliance from here. Duo explained the Red Banner Division must have had a reason for not coming today, so we'll go directly to the Alliance. I need to know what's happening there. The scene shifts to a vast palace. Inside a huge meeting hall, 2 men sat at a long table. Pyong reported, it's confirmed that Green Forest has allied with the 9 Dragons sect's main headquarters. Hearing that, Seomanbyok's face darkened and he remained silent. Sitting beside him, Pyong smiled outwardly but mocked him inwardly. That old man must be exhausting himself with all this planning. Though the Iron Banner Alliance was Gansu's strongest force, it was still only a Central Plains sect, yet now it faced an all-out war with the Northern Forest Alliance, the North's greatest power. So what will you do now, Seomanbyok? Only then did he slowly say, could Daguhong really be foolish enough not to know the Forest Alliance is nothing but a pack of hungry wolves? After saying that, he turned to Pyong and gave a slight nod. Seomanbyok's expression remained grim as he ordered, contact the Zhongnan sect and review the terms again. Pyong cupped his fists, accepted the order, and said nothing more. A moment later, as he stepped outside, he thought, he's already walking a tightrope over a cliff. One wrong step now, and he'll fall into the abyss. Pyong calmly walked away, just as I wanted. A sinister smile spread across his face. The scene returns to the desert, where Bongok was still sprinting ahead. As he ran, he stared wide-eyed at what lay ahead. Then Bongok reached the base of a huge rock and leaped onto it. He climbed to the top and carefully hid behind the rocks. Below those rocks was Ryujiang's group. He looked at them in confusion and wondered if he had arrived too late. Bongok failed to notice a group approaching from behind until they shouted, who are you? The group below, led by Ryujiang, was startled by the scream from above. Although surrounded, Bongok had already taken down one of their soldiers. Another large man raised his blade to attack from behind, but Bongok flipped into the air with lightning speed and counterattacked before he could react. After striking, he immediately leaped away and sprinted to escape. Just then, someone below suddenly shot into the air. Ryujiang charged straight at Bongok, swung his sword, and asked, where do you think you're going? He pointed his sword directly at Bongok. Bongok reacted instantly, raising his spear and aiming it back at Ryujiang. The 2 spears met head-on, neither yielding. When the weapons collided in midair, a tremendous explosion erupted. Ryujiang, who was charging up from below, was stunned by the sight and halted. Then Bongok dropped down and slammed hard into him. Bongok rammed hard into Ryujiang, sending both of them tumbling several meters away. Seeing this, Soryeon cried out in panic, 5-wheel lion. The 2 of them lay motionless on top of each other. Everyone then realized Bongok's spear had pierced straight through Ryujiang's chest. He struggled to pull the spear free as blood sprayed onto a nearby rock, staining it bright red. But because Bongok had fallen on top of Ryujiang, his own chest was badly injured too. Seeing Ryujiang lying still, Soryeon roared in fury, swinging his whip, avenged the 5-wheel lion. Bongok quickly leaned back and sprang away to dodge. Suddenly, an axe came flying toward him at terrifying speed. Bongok spotted it instantly and leaned back again to avoid it. The axe belonged to Man Ok, and the 2 attacked Bongok together. With a severe chest wound, Bongok could no longer endure and dropped to one knee. Then Bongok realized something and looked at the spear lodged through him and still stuck in Ryujiang's chest, wondering, was that a burst of sword energy? He recalled Ryujiang raising his sword, which had emitted a faint blue glow. After thinking it over, Bongok was stunned again. Did I just defeat a master? Soryeon could no longer hold back, tears streaming down as he shouted, how dare you kill the 5-wheel lion? Hearing that, Bongok widened his eyes in shock and asked, the 5-wheel lion? Soryeon kept swinging his whip relentlessly. Your luck ends here. Seeing that, Bongok immediately jumped back and dodged the strike. Taking the chance, he grabbed a large rock from the ground. While swinging his whip, Soryeon suddenly saw the huge rock flying at him and was startled. He raised an arm to block but was still dazed by the tremendous impact. At the same time, Man Ok's axe flew toward Bongok again. Whether by mistake or not, the axe shot straight into Soryeon's chest, making him scream. Seeing that, Man Ok panicked and shouted Soryeon's name. Then he raised his remaining axe and slammed it toward Bongok below, roaring, you brat. Unexpectedly, Bongok stayed calm and caught the axe blade with his bare hand. Taking advantage of that, Bongok grabbed Man Ok's throat with his other hand. But Man Ok was no ordinary fighter and immediately grabbed Bongok's hair. Man Ok's huge hand yanked Bongok's hair backward with all his strength. At the same time, Bongok squeezed Man Ok's throat with all his might. Bongok's body trembled as he thought, damn, my wound is draining all the strength from my hands. Then he released Man Ok's throat, thinking all or nothing. The next instant, Bongok's two fingers shot toward Man Ok at incredible speed. Without hesitation, his fingers stabbed straight into Man Ok's right eye, making him scream in agony. Struck in such a vital spot, Man Ok instantly let go and clutched his injured eye. This time Man Ok completely lost control, grabbed Bongok and roared, "I'll kill you." Bongok panicked slightly, thinking, if this keeps up, I'll die. The next moment, Bongok drove a powerful kick into the center of Man Ok's chest, stunning him. Then Bongok used the momentum to leap backward and tried to escape. His kick was so powerful that Man Ok couldn't withstand it and crashed to the ground. Bongok stepped back cautiously, watching Man Ok's subordinates. He pointed his spear at them while slowly retreating. When Bongok realized a towering cliff was behind him, he was startled. The subordinates were no pushovers and advanced with their spears raised. Left with no choice, Bongok put all his strength into his legs and leaped upward. He used his remaining strength to escape. The cliff was so high that Bongok had to drive his spear into the rock to propel himself upward. By then, Man Ok had stood up, radiating terrifying killing intent as he muttered, "You won't escape." Bongok was standing on his spear, ready for another jump. He launched himself toward the top of the cliff. At last, Bongok successfully landed on the cliff's summit. But when he looked down, his face instantly turned pale. Man Ok's axe was flying upward from below at terrifying speed. Although Bongok dodged in time, the axe still grazed his face, spraying blood. It seemed Man Ok had put all his strength into that throw. Bongok held one side of his face and slowly walked forward. His eyes were filled with panic as his body moved on instinct. In a barren wasteland, the blazing heat scorched everything. The four of them waited beneath a cave, some standing and some sitting. Banhyo, hot and irritated, blurted out, "Damn, finally some flat ground." Ho Chial put his hands on his hips and asked doubtfully, "Are we even on the right path?" Duo stood firm and assured everyone, "Follow this main road, then turn off and we'll reach the Iron Banner Alliance in Lanzhou." Sweating heavily from the heat, Ho Chial asked, "You mean we'll have to walk the whole way without horses?" Fan frowned and grumbled, "This guy sure complains a lot," making him snap, "What did you say?" The two began warming up, ready to fight. "You wanna die, you wanna test me." Duo couldn't stand it anymore and shouted, "Shut up." That single shout made all three turn to look at him. Suddenly, something rushed toward them from the distance. The sound of galloping horses grew louder as they approached the four. Duo quickly warned them, "Horses are coming." A mighty troop of soldiers came charging in. At the front was Bu Guai, who spotted them first. He reined in his horse and ordered the men behind him, "Stop." The horses slowed to assess the situation. Bu Guai exclaimed in surprise, "Well now, what's this?" The four widened their eyes in shock. They were the Iron Banner Alliance's lackeys. Duo could only curse inwardly, "Damn it, our luck is awful." Sitting proudly on his horse, he thought they looked like scattered survivors, but why had they come this way? The other three could only glance silently at Duo behind them. They lowered their bodies, preparing to flee. Bu Guai smirked, refusing to let them escape. Trying to run, stay still. Just as he spurred his horse forward, Ho Chial suddenly leaped aside. He charged straight at the troops behind them. Bu Guai angrily turned both himself and the wagon around. Since when? How did he end up blocking the rear? Ho Chial shouted a signal, "HWA Ung now." HWA Ung instantly leaped away, making even him turn his head. Bu Guai could only keep controlling his horse and curse, "Where do you think you're going?" His face suddenly darkened, filled with doubt. Since when had Duo appeared behind him? He decisively jumped onto the horse, gripping a saber. The moment Bu Guai turned around, Duo struck with one slash. Meanwhile, HWA Ung kept another general distracted. The man quickly jumped off his saddle. He landed with a heavy crash, sending rocks flying. HWA Ung stepped back slightly in fear. He shouted and lunged forward. The man gripped his axe with equal force. "You dare charge a battle-hardened warrior, you've got guts." With one powerful swing, he knocked HWA Ung back. Their clash exploded in smoke as distant soldiers stared in shock. Yet HWA Ung was unharmed and even fought back. The man forced himself up, gritting his teeth. "Bastard." Another man gasped at HWA Ung's strength. A battle-hardened warrior being overpowered, that's a first. The general planted his axe into the ground and muttered, "That bastard actually forced back a battle-hardened warrior." Burning with rage, he charged forward. He lowered his body into a fighting stance. Ho Chial was also fighting fiercely. But before he could react, an enemy attacked from behind. The scar-faced man raised his sword defensively and sneered, "Not bad for a survivor of the Iron Banner Alliance." Hearing that, Ho Chial gritted his teeth in fury. "Is running away all you're good at?" He pointed his sword straight at Ho Chial. The blade pierced straight through Ho Chial's shoulder. Even Ho Chial hadn't expected him to be that fast. The scar-faced man pressed the attack with a sinister grin. It's a shame someone who barely escaped the battlefield had to meet me, because in the Green Forest Alliance my swordsmanship is famed for its speed. Hochial raised his hand to defend, slightly startled. Green Forest Alliance. He repeated the same move. Let's see how you dodge this one. Manhwa was fighting 5 enemies at once. Whoever wants to die first, come on. He smiled excitedly. The first one to charge will surely die. Fresh red blood dripped from his arm. Heavy footsteps pounded against the ground. The 2 men locked eyes with fierce hostility. Bugwai was drenched in sweat, gritting his teeth in rage after being ambushed by the Iron Banner Alliance's lackeys. Then he thought, as one of the 4-wheel lions of the 9 Dragons cult, I'm exposing such a pathetic side before the Green Forest Alliance. Suddenly, heavy footsteps thundered as someone leaped forward to attack. Duo charged straight at him. He focused on his footwork and knocked Bugwai off balance. With just one move, Bugwai crashed to the ground. Without stopping, Duo drew his sword and attacked. He spun instantly, forcing Bugwai to retreat. Bugwai still couldn't land a single strike. A voice suddenly called from behind, "Need my help?" Bugwai turned around and replied, "No need, I'll finish this quickly, just watch." Duo simply answered with 2 words, "Just watch." Every word he spoke made his enemy tremble. Whether I leave here alive or die here is still uncertain. Duo's face filled with killing intent. But no matter the outcome, this won't end easily. Bugwai could only defend cautiously. What is this? Bugwai's face turned pale. Since when did the Iron Banner Alliance have a master like this? Meanwhile, Hwa Ung was facing the muscular man's assault. The brute swung his axe wildly like a child. Hwa Ung lowered his stance and focused on defense. Even while under attack, Ho Chial shouted, "Hwa Ung, run." Hwa Ung obeyed at once and turned to flee. He launched himself away with a swift movement technique. The muscular brute immediately hurled his axe at Hwa Ung. The axe shot toward him at incredible speed. In an instant, it struck him squarely in the back. Seriously wounded, he coughed up blood and collapsed instantly. Hochial cried out his name in anguish. But the scar-faced man refused to let him go. "Where are you looking?" A decisive slash left Hochial stunned. One of his arms flew off. With no other choice, Hochial ignored the wound and fled. The scar-faced man stubbornly chased after him. But Hochial was even faster, darting through the crowd. Right behind him, the scar-faced man pursued like a madman. Meanwhile, Hwa Ung was on the brink of death. The brute pulled the axe from Hwa Ung's body, stomped on him, and sneered, "Did you think you could escape my axe?" Hochial moved behind him, preparing a sneak attack. But the scar-faced man noticed immediately. "Your turn now." He gripped his axe and shouted, "I'll split you in half." But a hand suddenly grabbed the muscular man's head from behind. Hwa Ung flew into a rage and twisted his head. "Bastard." The muscular man struggled desperately. "Let go, let go." Hwa Ung squeezed harder and blood poured from his eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. Seconds later, blood kept gushing out in every direction. The muscular man collapsed, his face completely crushed. The scar-faced man could only scream. Just when they thought it was over, the one-eyed man launched a sneak attack. "You let your guard down." Hwa Ung's vision went black, and he collapsed to his knees. Hochial cried out with tears streaming down his face. He used his injured body to support Hwa Ung. Hwa Ung opened his eyes, sweat on his forehead, and smiled at him. The scar-faced man charged in to finish them both. Just as he was about to succeed, Duo and Banhyo stepped in and stopped him. Duo stared at the enemy with gritted teeth. Banhyo wore the same determined expression. The scar-faced man roared, "You crippled soldiers dare challenge us." Bugwai stepped forward and said, "They don't seem like ordinary survivors." Then he noticed the sword in Duo's hand. He froze briefly. "You're Duo, aren't you?" Bugwai grinned wickedly. "So you're the one our young master hates so much." He laughed with delight. "Looks like I've caught a big fish." The scar-faced man shouted, "It's Duo," then added, "My lord has never forgotten losing the 9 Dragons cult's 2 lions." The scar-faced man grew even more excited. Capturing him will be the perfect gift to celebrate the alliance between the Green Forest Alliance and the 9 Dragons cult. Duo smiled calmly. "You understand now, don't you, Banhyo?" He immediately drew his sword and charged. Being famous really brings nothing good. The one-eyed man attacked first, throwing his spear from afar. Duo barely dodged the strike. The next instant, the enemy's sword slashed toward him. Banhyo blocked it just in time from the side. The two fought him together. The scar-faced man slashed his sword in one swift motion. Banhyo turned and shouted, "Hey, if you're not fighting, at least run." Hochial lowered his head and stayed silent the whole time. Duo kept blocking the relentless attacks. These guys are all experts. As he fought, he searched for a way out. One expert is hard enough, so how can I beat 3 at once? Then a thought crossed Duo's mind. Which one should I drag with me into the afterlife? The one-eyed man's spear shot toward him once again. It pierced into his body from behind. Banhyo shouted from the side, "Captain." Duo smirked, a bold idea forming. I've decided. He risked everything and let the chain's momentum fling him toward the enemy as his feet scraped the ground. Duo recklessly charged forward to attack. The one-eyed man couldn't defend in time. A slash swept across the one-eyed man's face. At the same time, the scar-faced man slashed Duo across the back. He clutched his eye and screamed, "My eye, my eye." Duo endured the pain and took the one-eyed man hostage. Duo shouted, "Banhyo, they're only after me." Banhyo frowned, "You don't have to die with me." None of them dared to move. Banhyo couldn't hold back any longer and roared. He shut his eyes and sprinted forward. The one-eyed man could only groan, "Damn you." He trembled as he cried, "My eye, my eye." Duo drew his sword and pressed it against his throat, warning him to shut up. Before he could finish speaking, the one-eyed man collapsed. The scar-faced man stared wide-eyed in disbelief. He pulled the sickle from his side as blood kept pouring out. 2 leaders of the Green Forest Alliance had fallen to a band of survivors. Duo glanced toward Ho Chial and Hwa Ung. He frowned slightly, looking somewhat guilty. "I'm sorry about that." The two remained frozen in place because they couldn't die by your hand. The two sides stood staring at each other for a long while. This time he charged in alone against the crowd. But before reaching them, something was thrown to stop him. The enemies grinned with sinister intent. Duo dropped to one knee. He was surrounded as they overwhelmed him and pinned him to the ground. Bu Guai's grin widened as he ordered, "Keep him alive until we reach Red Gold Gorge." His face darkened, unable to do anything. Beneath the gloomy sky, white smoke drifted over piles of corpses. Crows tore apart the dead to eat their flesh. Even wolves stepped over skulls searching for food. Then it suddenly widened its eyes in shock. The wolf dug its paws into the ground, trembling. Zhang Hak's gaze filled it with terror. Terrified, the wolf turned and ran. He and his companions looked around in shock at the corpses scattered everywhere. Bodies covered the ground ahead, and Zhang Hak guessed they had been deliberately gathered here. The old man said from experience that this must be the Valley of Death, leaving Zhang Hak puzzled. He slowly explained that the 9 Dragons cult believed a person's final contribution was offering their body to wild beasts after death. Zhang Hak spat in disgust. Idiots, don't they know what happens once wild dogs develop a taste for human flesh? The old man warned everyone that this was the Valley of Death, deep within the 9 Dragons cult's territory, so they had to stay alert. Zhang Hak examined the area more carefully. Some of these bodies died only recently. The old man suddenly noticed something and dropped to his knees. "No, impossible." His voice trembled even more. "No, this can't be." Everyone nearby helped the young man up. "No, Snow." The old man knelt beside the young man's body. Why are you here, little brother?" Tears streamed down his face. "I prayed this wouldn't happen to you." Then the old man sensed something unusual. Bangok's pulse was still beating. His heart seemed to skip a beat. The old man took out a carefully hidden black pill. He personally placed it into Bangok's mouth. The old man lifted Bangok up and placed both palms on his back to channel his energy. He tried to pull his younger brother back from death. In front of him, Zhang Hak supported Bangok's body to keep him steady. Together, they worked to save the young man. Zhang Hak was quite surprised by the old man. He was astonished by the old man's internal energy. At that moment, the young man teared up slightly as blood flowed from his mouth. The old man quickly rubbed his chest as tears fell again. "Thank heavens, truly thank heavens." Zhang Hak stared at him and thought, this old man. He couldn't help wondering, who are you really? By the next morning, the Iron Banner Alliance stronghold was surrounded by endless mountains. 4 people sat around the meeting table, staring at one another. Arayo was shocked. The Black Banner Hall has been completely wiped out. Pyong confirmed it. Vice Hall Master No Jongdu is confirmed dead, but Hall Master and So is still missing. She was deeply worried about one person. What about Duo? Sitting in the center, Xiamen Byok asked, more importantly, what caused the defeat. Jiang Qin reported that the Black Banner Hall had a spy from the 9 Dragons cult. This caught Xiamen Byok's attention. "A spy, have you identified who it is?" He immediately answered, "It's Bangok from the Joker Squad." Hearing the name, Xiamen Byok's face darkened. Bangok is the spy. Seeing that expression, Jiang Qin broke into a cold sweat. "My men personally saw him attack us." He clenched his fist and declared firmly, the 9 Dragons cult was clearly backing Bangok. Xiamen Byok glanced aside, reminding everyone that Bangok was a descendant of the Mi family from Seizing Manor. His face was filled with killing intent. "Are you saying the famed Seizing Mountain Manor is backing the 9 Dragons cult?" Jiangqin could only give an awkward smile. Arayo only cared whether one person lived or died, but what about Duo? The entire room fell silent. The scene shifted to the ruined headquarters of the 9 Dragons cult at Crimson Gold Valley. Footsteps echoed across the ground. Jingjing walked calmly through the compound with a cold expression. She approached the heavily guarded prison. The guards bowed, "Young master," and she ordered them to open the gate. They obeyed and pulled the mechanism. The gate slowly rose upward. Jingjing's small silhouette was cast inside. She entered with her subordinates to meet someone. The person chained by all four limbs was Duo. Jingjing widened her eyes and curled her lips. Duo. She then noticed Hochial beside him. Looking down, she quietly asked, "Who is that?" A subordinate answered briefly, "An Iron Banner Alliance lackey captured with him." Hearing that, Jingjing coldly ordered, "Throw him into the abyss." As Hochial was dragged away, she added, "No one enters until I summon you." He was dragged across the floor. Then the gate slammed shut with a loud bang. Hochial let himself be dragged without resisting. At the bottom of the abyss lay thousands of skulls. Daguhong had been cultivating there every night. His eyes were filled with ambition. Beneath the faint light shining from far above, Daguhong slowly awakened. A voice full of disgust muttered, "That smell." Hochial was thrown into the abyss. He crashed to the ground before Daguhong. The soldiers above shouted, "Close it already, we can't stand this stench." The pit sealed shut without mercy. Their stomachs churned with nausea. Disgusting. He stood before Hochial's body. Daguhong muttered, "No." He examined Hochial's body. This body can't contain the 8 extremes power. Meanwhile, where Duo was held, Jingjing examined the torture tools. She toyed with a golden needle before choosing a scalpel. Neither of them spoke a word. Jingjing suddenly turned around and asked, "What?" Duo calmly replied, "I asked when you'll begin." That only excited her more. "Are you that impatient?" Duo smirked faintly, looking bored. Jingjing slowly walked closer to him. "It'll be fun to see how long that confidence lasts." She ran her blade across his flesh. "I don't know what you're expecting, but..." Duo calmly replied, "Nothing interesting will happen." Then the torture of carving flesh inside the prison began. Outside, the soldiers whispered, "The cult leader probably doesn't know the young master has this hobby." The man beside him warned, "If the cult leader finds out, the young master will be in serious trouble." A shadow quietly appeared in a corner of the prison. He let out an eerie laugh. Before the cold stone chamber, 2 guards stood like stone statues on both sides of the steps. One of them let out a weary yawn. "She's been inside the stone chamber for a while. Why is it so quiet?" The other replied, "I know." The yawning guard looked worried. "We haven't even heard a groan, let alone a scream." The other answered, "Exactly." As soon as he finished speaking, they both turned around in alarm. Did something happen to the young master? Suddenly, the stone chamber door opened. The 2 guards rushed inside in shock. They hurried toward Jingjing, who was kneeling on the ground, shouting, "Young master." One guard tried to help her up, but she angrily shouted, "I told you not to come in until I called." Suddenly, the other guard screamed. He stammered like he'd seen a ghost, making the other turn to look. He cried out in horror, "How is he still alive?" Jingjing's face darkened as she turned away. Throw his body into some corner. She thought to herself, that stubborn bastard never uttered a single scream until the end. The 2 guards hesitated, unsure what to do. Covered in sweat, they struggled to stuff the body into a large sack. Then they worked together to drag the heavy sack away. Blood trailed behind them wherever they went. One guard complained in horror, "If you're going to kill someone, at least do it cleanly instead of torturing them like this." The other frowned and asked, "But what are we supposed to do with this body?" The first replied carelessly, "He's as good as dead anyway, so just throw him in with the other corpse," while blood kept dripping from the sack. The scene shifted to a bright passage or massive glowing fissure where tiny black specks floated strangely. Daguhong looked up from the bottom as if waiting for something. Suddenly, a body fell right in front of him. He carefully laid the body flat and placed both hands on it to examine it. Sweat soaked his body, yet his expression remained tense. After feeling the body's abdomen, he thought, "The muscles are twisted and the joints are protruding." Looking at the mangled arm, he thought, "Even the nerves have been torn apart and twisted." Daguhong asked in anger and fear, "Jingjing, did you do this?" After a moment, his face darkened. "This body is completely ruined." Suddenly, hope lit up in his eyes. With such incredible vitality and resilience, he had an idea. He could become a vessel for the 8 extremes power. He immediately activated his energy, and dazzling lightning burst around him. The scene shifted to a broad street lined with ancient buildings and crowded with people. This was the Xiao Bay district. The marketplace bustled with people, each busy with their own business. Yet the atmosphere was unusually tense, making everything feel both real and dramatic. Inside the room, the old man was bandaging Bongok's arm. He said gently, "Fortunately, your wound is healing very well." Bongok picked up a mirror and looked at his face as the old man added, "But it will leave a scar." Buangok anxiously asked, "How's the battle going?" Lowering his head, he slammed the table and said, "The 9 Dragons cult has formed an alliance with the Green Forest Alliance." Deeply troubled, the old man said the Red Banner Hall had been defeated by the combined forces of the 9 Dragons cult and the Green Forest Alliance, with only about 30 survivors fleeing for their lives. Hearing that, Bongok gritted his teeth. "I understand." Suddenly, someone spoke up, startling him. there's even more shocking news. At the doorway stood a huge monk and a short man whose hat covered half his face. Banguk asked, "Who are you?" The old man explained, "This is the Nine Dragons cult's territory, so I had no choice but to disguise myself." The monk looked at Banguk and said, "Since you didn't recognize me, my disguise must be pretty good." Banguk hurried over and asked eagerly, "So what's the shocking news?" The monk replied, "Right." He continued, "A rumor is spreading across the region that the captain of the Black Banner Hall. People say the Green Forest Alliance accomplished on the first day what the Nine Dragons cult never could." The monk explained that the Green Forest Alliance seemed to be spreading the rumor on purpose. The old man stepped forward with his hands on his hips. "The Green Forest Alliance's motive for spreading this rumor is terrifying." Banguk cut him off. "Even so," Banguk shouted with determination, "we still have to rescue him." And everyone answered together, "Of course." The scene returned to the dark place where Daguhong was treating a body. It was Ho Chial. He slowly opened his eyes and gasped for breath. He struggled to sit up, racked with pain from his severed arm. After calming down, he looked around while Daguhong stood up and turned away. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Daguhong sighed. "Hugh, that's all I can do." Speaking as he did so, he placed the last remaining spirit medicine into the other body's mouth. Ho Chial was still confused. "Where am I? Is this hell?" Hearing that, Daguhong turned around and asked, "Then I must be the king of hell." Enduring the pain, Ho Chial asked, "Who are you?" Daguhong sat upright with a proud look. Daguhong, leader of the Nine Dragons cult. Ho Chial asked again, "Then why are you in a place like this?" Daguhong replied briefly, "It's a long story, but if you want to survive here, recover your strength first." Suddenly, the body behind them twitched. He stared at it, his eyes lighting up. The spirit medicine is finally taking effect. The ruined body slowly began to recover. Daguhong watched expectantly. Can that battered body really recover as I hoped? The scene shifted to the Baizhang sect, where bright sunlight shone upon its ancient, sturdy gate, while both sides remained eerily quiet. Suddenly, two shadows flashed through the bamboo like the wind. Behind them, a senior disciple shouted anxiously, "Slow down a little, Ho Chial." Hearing that, Ho Chial ran even faster. "Hurry, senior brother, I heard a new disciple has joined our Baizhang sect." He shouted excitedly, "I finally have my own junior brother." Ho Chial rushed ahead while his senior brother worriedly chased after him. "I won't have to do all the chores alone anymore." But when he arrived, he was stunned. What a chubby little kid. Everyone happily congratulated him and handed him an adorable boy. "This is your youngest junior brother and you'll take care of him from now on." Ho Chial gasped, "Huh." Someone said, "The boy's name is Hwa Ung." Ho Chial held the child in his arms, speechless, before quietly saying, "Hwa Ung." The little boy stood crying in the forest. Ho Chial grumbled, "Come with senior brother," then kept walking ahead. He looked back at Hwa Ung and complained, "Hurry up and keep up." But after only a few steps, the boy tripped and fell, startling Ho Chial. The sudden fall made Hwa Ung burst into tears. Ho Chial sighed, knelt down, and said, "I can't help it, climb on my back." He carried the boy while complaining, "Since when did you become as heavy as a rock?" Suddenly, a fierce wind made the bamboo sway strangely. Time quickly passed. Hwa Ung had grown as tall as Ho Chial, and they still raced through the bamboo forest like children. Ho Chial teased, "Can you even keep up, Hwa Ung?" Hwa Ung clumsily ran behind. "There are too many bamboo stalks here." Ho Chial laughed. "A Baizhang sect disciple shouldn't say such weak things." Hwa Ung panted, sweat covering his forehead. "Just slow down a little, senior brother." Suddenly, an iron axe flew out of nowhere. It slammed into Hwa Ung's back, making him cough up blood. Ho Chial was horrified. A huge man suddenly appeared and walked over to pull the axe from Hwa Ung's body. Ho Chial rushed in to save him. In an instant, the axe swung and severed his arm. The axeman laughed proudly while Ho Chial screamed as blood gushed from his severed arm. His agonized cry echoed to the heavens as tears streamed down his face. Ho Chial had just finished telling Daguhong what happened, and the memory still haunted him as he slammed his fist onto a rock. No. Daguhong was questioning the corpse from earlier. Now that he had awakened and sat before him, he asked, "You haven't even heard my request, so what exactly are you refusing?" He replied firmly, "No matter how small the request, I refuse." He recalled when Han Song found him. "I ended up in this living hell because of one tiny favor." Daguhong explained, "Your body was completely ruined. Without my last spirit pill, do you think you'd even be able to speak now? He looked determined. If it's that precious, then take it back. Da Guhong snapped, I don't want your life. Just grant me one request and I'll get you out of here. He calmly answered, I'd rather die here. Da Guhong smiled meaningfully. So you're a boy who hates making deals? Fine, fine. He made a bold offer. What if I save you with no conditions and even pass my supreme inner power on to you? He continued, I don't know about anything else, but your inner energy is truly pathetic compared to your natural talent. And those words slightly shook him. Da Guhong kept persuading him, at your current level you may be strong compared to ordinary people, but you'll never defeat a true master. He gave everything to win him over. Strength is important and experience matters, but that alone isn't enough. The gap between brute strength and inner energy is like a river and the ocean. He raised his hand, creating a strange glow. A river can dry up, but the ocean never will. He then clenched his fist with determination. You will inherit the strength and wisdom I've cultivated for nearly 40 years. He continued firmly, my body is rotting from a deadly poison, and I'm only staying alive by burning the little inner energy I have left. He concluded, there's no time left. The longer you hesitate, the less I can pass on to you. Duo merely smirked. That was quite a touching performance, old man. But I don't trust smooth talkers whose words lack sincerity. That filthy bastard, Ho Chial shouted angrily. You may want to die like this, but I don't. As he spoke, he remembered Hwa Ung as a child. I've been with him since he could barely walk and raised him with my own hands. Ho Chial sobbed in pain. You may forget those who killed him, but I'll never forgive them. He swore revenge. I will never die here. I'll get out and rip that scar-faced bastard's guts out. Hearing that, Duo silently stared at Ho Chial. Da Guhong asked curiously. Duo remained silent without answering. Da Guhong slowly said, I see. No wonder Jingjing tortured your body so brutally. He calmly continued, Gang Gyusim was the son of the only woman I ever loved, the first and the last. His expression darkened. To me, that child was like my own son. No, even more than that. And Gang Gyusim died by my hand. Hearing that, Duo froze, then smiled faintly. And you still want to save me? The atmosphere suddenly became suffocatingly silent. The oppressive silence made it hard to breathe. Everyone dropped to their knees. Banhio also knelt, but he remained alert, watching his surroundings. After the bronze bell rang several times, everyone stood up and shouted, Cult leader, cult leader. A man stood atop the platform, surveying the crowd. After a moment, he announced, the cult leader will not appear today. He was the first wheel lion, Kang Han. Kang Han declared, until the Iron Banner Alliance falls and a new sacred hall is built, the cult leader says he will not appear before us. Everyone looked at each other in confusion, while only Ban Hyo remained expressionless. Everyone eventually dispersed, leaving only him standing there. As he walked past several groups, he heard them whisper, hasn't the cult leader seemed different lately? Where is the cult leader, and why won't he show himself? Da Guhong suddenly opened his eyes and spoke while meditating. Gang Gyusim was the son of the only woman I ever loved, the first and the last. To me, that child was like my own son. No, even more than that. Duo sat directly before him, and Gang Gyusim died by my hand. He calmly asked, and you still want to save me? Ho Chial was also sitting outside. Da Guhong said slowly, I have two secrets. Ho Chial, who had lost an arm, listened intently. Da Guhong grabbed his arm, removed the prosthetic hand, and said, my left arm is artificial. I lost it in an accident when I was young. Instead, I had the master craftsman Sa No Ban create this prosthetic, the rebellious dragon blood hand. It's not just a replacement hand, but a hidden weapon with devastating power. He continued, I thought I'd need it someday, so I've never told anyone, not even my daughter. Da Guhong wanted to give the hand to Ho Chial. I'll entrust this to that young man with overwhelming killing intent. But he warned, even this alone isn't enough to deal with the Green Forest Alliance, which is why another power is needed. That young man's body is too weak to contain it, so I must persuade you instead. If there were another choice, I'd kill you here and take that path. Da Guhong gathered his energy in his palm. Sadly, there's no other way, and I don't have much time left. So he reached toward Duo. I have no choice but to pass the 8 extremes power to you. The moment he touched him, Duo felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The immense power even left Ho Chial stunned. A bolt of lightning crashed directly where they were sitting. The underground prison remained tightly sealed. The next morning, at the city marketplace, Bangok and the old man walked along the street. Bangok kept glancing around nervously. What if someone we fought recognizes us? The old man reassured him, only people like Inso or Sang Hak might be recognized since they're hall masters. No one remembers nobodies like us. Bangok relaxed a little. You're right, with this huge scar on my face, no one will recognize me. Suddenly, someone grabbed his shoulder from behind. Hey, you little rookie. Bangok immediately punched Ban Hyo. I told you not to call me that. Ban Hyo held his bleeding nose. Bangok's eyes suddenly filled with tears. He rushed forward and hugged him tightly. I thought you were dead. The old man hugged them both and said, don't stand around out here, let's find a tavern and have a proper talk. Ban Hyo shook his head. As a loyal follower of the Nine Dragons cult, I cannot touch alcohol. Suddenly a hand shoved him in the chest. Bangok was about to draw his dagger and teach him a lesson. Ban Hyo immediately pressed his palms together and chanted, compassion, compassion. The old man stepped in to mediate. They say when a killer tires of blood, he lays down his blade, and when a courtesan despises that life, she shaves her head to become a nun. It turned out Ban Hyo had changed his ways and joined the Nine Dragons cult, which was truly worth celebrating. The old man pulled Ban Hyo along. Come on, come back with me. Do you know how worried I was? Ban Hyo scratched his head shyly. If senior brother and our little brother wish to join the cult, I'd gladly guide them. I honestly wonder why you didn't join sooner. At a restaurant, and so nearly spat out his food while eating. Ban Hyo laughed carelessly. What on earth are you wearing? It suits you so well it looks ridiculous. Hearing that, and so was speechless. The old man asked, you've also heard that our eldest brother has arrived in this area, right? Ban Hyo replied while eating meat, of course. Around here, no one knows our eldest brother better than I do. Those words made Bangok see him in a different light. Ban Hyo rubbed his head. Little brother, we have a lot to talk about first, don't we? You haven't even properly greeted me yet. But right after saying something impressive, his foul breath made Bangok furious. Ban Hyo scratched his head awkwardly, thinking, seriously, when did this kid grow up so fast?